There we go. We're live. My internet's a little slow right now. It looks like you might be froze up visually and the other it unstuck. All right, we're live. I'm here with Jimmy Blannton. This is episode 5 of Praying-N-Squatchin. Start off with thanking you for being here. God bless you. Appreciate it. I know I've said it a dozen times, but don't ever say it again when everybody can hear it. We'll start out letting you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're at, what you're doing, what you're from. Go into your encounter. Hopefully, we'll have some live viewers jump in here in a few minutes. And once we're through that, we can take questions. Like I said, hit bulletin points and go from there.
My name is Jimmy Blannton. I am a cryptid and paranormal researcher from Harlan, Kentucky. I've got about 6 years experience in the cryptid field and about 10 in the paranormal field. I'm the founder of the Harlan, Kentucky CryptoCon in Harlan, Kentucky. I have my own podcast on Anchor FM called These Hills Have Monsters. I'm part of a paranormal team called Paranormal Chaos with my sister, my big sister, Marcella Chadwick, and that about covers that. It was actually a good friend of mine, Thomas Markham, who lives down the road from me, who is a cryptid researcher. Got me into doing cryptids and stuff like that. Just got interested in it, and I always had been interested in it from a young age. I always loved going to the library in our elementary school and just picking out any type of cryptid related book that I could find, especially anything that had anything to do with Bigfoot or that type of humanoid type, hairy giants, wild man, those type of books like that. But Thomas got me into doing the research. I had bariatric surgery back about 4 years ago, and after that I was able to get into doing field research. So for the past 5 years I've been out in the field doing active research, boots on the ground as they call it. And I've went for years without seeing anything, and a lot of my friends kept telling me, you keep doing this, you're going to see something one of these days. And it actually happened, and I'll be honest, it shook me when I did see the creature that I saw. I actually saw it from the back. It was a reddish brown colored, about 7.5 foot tall, and it was actually over an embankment from where I was at. When I seen this thing, it took off running from me. So I didn't get to look at the face. There was no facial features, but I did notice that the arms were long, and I didn't smell anything until it got down to the bottom of the gully that it ran down, and then started across out of my sight. There is a creek, so I'm thinking that it ran across the creek back up the mountainside. Because of the angle where the gully and stuff was at, I couldn't see in the direction it ran. But it seems like to me, I can remember that when it got down to the bottom, I smelled a little bit of a smell. It was kind of pungent, strong, like something dead and sweaty, I guess you could say. It was, that was, of course, one of the classic signs of, that I'd seen something. But still to this day, when I tell people about the encounter that I have, I can't say for sure. Now, this is just on my part that I seen a Bigfoot, and I'm only saying that because I didn't get to see the face. It could have been a Bigfoot. It could have been what they call a dog man. I really don't know because I really didn't get to see the face of it. Still to this day, I kind of scratch my head and think maybe this creature wasn't a Bigfoot. Maybe it was somebody dressed in a suit. But this thing was huge. I mean, it had broad shoulders, at least almost 4 foot wide. that came down to a V shape around the hips. And I noticed as it ran from me, I could see the back of its leg, and it looked like to me I could see the muscle in the leg rippling. And like I said, I've told friends about this, not too many,
Audio
a
muffled
couple.
up just a little.
Sorry about that. I told a
The
couple
audio, I
friends.
think one or the other internet's a little slow.
I told a couple
You got
friends
muffled about
about.
the time you was talking about something about the back of its legs.
Um, I had noticed the back of its legs as it was running away from me. It looked like I could see the muscles underneath the fur rippling as it was running from me. It was a crazy to this day. I haven't been back up there in this area, and it was last year that I had this sighting. But I won't go back up there by myself because the whole thing just tripped me out. But I got what I was asking for, basically, I guess you can say, because I've been searching for something that all my other friends told me, you keep looking for it, one of these days you're gonna run into it. So I did, and it was kind of crazy.
Now, Harlan County, about all I really know about. I got one friend down there on Facebook, moved down there from up here in Harrison County, a Misty Turner. About all I know about it is you remember the show that Justified that was on a few years ago about the U.S. Marshal. But
Yeah.
it's coal mining country, ain't it?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Just I'm trying to picture your environment in my head here as far as
I
mountains
mean,
and
like mountains.
which
I'm talking like some of the craziest terrain you've ever seen in your life. We've got an area here that's called Stone Mountain, and that's basically the whole terrain of Harlan County is nothing but hollows, mountaintops. Some of these parts you can get on where they strip mine, and you can walk for miles, go miles and miles on roads that just on the mountaintops, out in the middle of nowhere, miles away from anyone. It's just the crazy the terrain we have here.
let me check something real quick. We don't have any live viewers. I've got a couple of notifications on Facebook, see if there's something wrong with the link or.
Okay.
Like I said, I think my internet might be the problem. It's acting a little slow right now. I can't even get my notifications to come up. Yeah, I just dropped out of the studio for a second. I think it's my internet. Somebody asked me how to access it. I gave them the link, I thought, when I put it on my page there. For some reason, I have a hard time. I'll copy the link here in my browser, and then when I go to paste it on Facebook, it don't want to paste. I don't know what the.
I've had the same problem before in the past also, so that's nothing new really. It could just be Facebook because Facebook has been acting up pretty bad for the past couple days.
Well, it let me post a response to his question how to access it. I don't know if it'll do any good. For some reason, it wouldn't let me post the link as a link itself. I'm not a tech guy. It's boggling my mind. Like you said, Facebook can be quirky, to say the least.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
if nothing else, I guess I can always watch the replay. Uh, well, first off, what you talk about, your encounter and my encounters are kind of similar in a way, because the same thing happened to me. It ran away from me, and I didn't get a look at its face, or I got kind of a back to 3/4 view. It was kind of angled away from me as it went crashing through the trees. All I could see was it's like you said, a reddish brown color, and the realization that whatever that is, it's a whole lot bigger than me. I was just getting flashes of red and brown through. This was in spring, early summer, through the leaves and branches. I wasn't seeing the whole, but I'm standing up here at the top of the bank in the yard, and it's down over the bank in the field going into the woods there, past the house. And even though I'm at a higher elevation than it, I got the feeling if I was standing looking at dead on, it's going to be taller than me, quite a bit taller than me. I'm only 5'7", so saying something's bigger than me don't really mean much. But uh, and like you said, it ran away from me, which you saw about it. It could have been a man in a costume. Anybody that knows me ain't gonna come out here on my property running around in a costume. Bigfoot or just running around in a Bigfoot costume or otherwise, it's just not a good idea. And
Yeah,
where you
that's
was talking about that kind of train, I can't imagine somebody. There's Shredder. He's wanting to join us. I guess maybe I gave him the join link by mistake. I always say I'm no expert, no professional. I tried to add him there. I don't know. Shredder, can you hear us? Let me try bringing up the YouTube link and give him that. Yeah, my internet's being real slow. It's taking everything forever to load down. What I was going to say, I don't believe it was anybody out in that kind of terrain in a costume. And you said it was about 7.5 feet. There's just ain't that many 7 and 7.5 foot tall guys running around. I mean, the average height's right around 6 foot. That's the
not
problem
with
I always
no
have with the Patterson film.
not with no 4 foot wide shoulders. There's no way.
Exactly. And that goes all the way back to the Patterson film. Always so and so in a costume. Well, show us the costume. Show us the person that was in the costume. Take it out to Bluff Creek, get in the costume, run across that creek bank like Patty did, reenact it. Show us you in a costume doing what she did, and let's compare it. That's what I've always told
Yeah.
people it's going to take to convince me that the Patterson film's a fake. Show me the costume, show me whoever was in the costume, if they're still alive. Uh, you know. Otherwise, don't tell me it was somebody in a costume. I got a private chat popped up. See what's Shredder says he is listening. Okay. Like I said, I'm working on getting the YouTube link up here, see if I can get some more people in here. Uh, and like you say, people tell you be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. That's kind of the
Yep.
same boat. I was like you, similarities. I was ticking them off on my fingers. My dad, when I was no more than second, third grade, brought a book home from the library. I remember this book. It was Bible thick, black, had a guy standing next to either like a totem pole or a wooden carving of a Sasquatch. And just said something like Bigfoot across the front of it. Well, Dad, I wasn't old enough to read this book. It was advanced. I was a good reader, but not that good. Second or third grade. He let me look at the pictures. I, hooked. Like you said, just anything about Bigfoot. And I went like you. I went a lot longer than you without seeing anything. And what eventually led to it, long story short, I had what I think was a roadside crossing years ago. When I say think, like you, people have doubted me to the point that I started doubting myself what I saw. And this was back in the late '90s, early 2000s. I was coming home from work in Georgetown, and I forget, it was after midnight. I'm coming up 27 North, big steep hill. I see something looks like it's coming over the guardrail on the far lane, oncoming lane, 3 lanes over this way. There's another car in the slow lane. I'm getting ready to go over. So I hit my bright lights. I was like, that ain't a deer and ain't a dog. What is it? As I'm getting closer, I was like, okay. And this one to me looked like it was between 8.5, 9 foot tall. That reddish brown auburn or mahogany colored fur. And like you said, the thing that always stick with me is both times with whatever went crashing through the woods with me that I was telling you about more recently, about 3 years ago, 4. And this time, both what really struck me up wasn't even the height; it was the width of the shoulders and the girth from front to back. Because I swear this thing looked like you could have stacked 3 guys' chest to back, and it would have been thicker than all 3 of them. And like you said, shoulders 4.5, 5 foot wide. So what you saw of what and even my own father, he was like, I think you wanted to see a Bigfoot so bad you saw one. Well, gee, thanks, Dad. You just more or less called me crazy. I'm delusional, having full blown hallucinations. They should be putting me in a padded room right now somewhere for my own good. But uh, yeah, real similar. And like I said, now I'm not so sure. I've heard so many times you saw a bear or a deer or something, But now the more recent ones, I'm convinced. Well, we lost Jimmy. Might have to send him another join link if he dropped out. There he is. Yeah, we lost him. My more recent encounters, I'm pretty much convinced I know what I saw. But just like you, from a young age, I never, ghost stuff kind of got into it, the whole UFO thing. But when it come to Bigfoot, like I said, hook, line, and sinker, just, and now I've turned it into a borderline obsession, as my mother tells me all the time. But it gets in your blood. Like you
Oh
say, this
yeah.
stuff starts happening. It rattles you. It gets in your blood. You lay awake at night thinking about it. You're driving down the road thinking about it. People don't really understand. It gets in your head. Let me see. Hopefully.
My wife used to joke around all the time. She would tell me about how obsessed I was with it. Um, and it's like you said, you get it in your head, man. It's easy to get wrapped up in it, especially when you come across Bigfoot, and then you realize there's so many other more cryptids out there, and it just like it sucks you in.
Yeah, I finally got the YouTube link so I can copy and paste it. I'm putting it in my group and I'm going to put it to Facebook shortly. Maybe get some more viewers in here. We'll have a little bit of feedback echo until I shut it down. But So yours was last year. That's actually fairly recent.
Yeah, it was last year.
Somebody's asking if I can get. Shredder's asking how close have your guys been to one. Shredder, you're in a private chat. If you want to go to the public chat and ask questions where we can both see them. But that's what he's asking. How I can't put it on screen because it's a private chat. But want to know how close we've been to them.
I would say probably at least maybe 50 foot away. It was over a small embankment. And it, like I said, once I made it, it didn't take much at all for me to make some noise because I had stood up. And when I stood up, it was kind of like crouched down and it stood straight up. And then before I knowed it, I went to grab my backpack and my walking stick. I could hear it was running. And then I turned back around to look and just catching it as it was going down the hill. And it's crazy how fast this thing moved.
Yeah, same with me. When it took off, I'd have never known it was there. I was just out walking around the yard that afternoon just cleared my head, wasn't doing anything. And down the embankment there, I just heard a and I turned my head, and by the time I took my head, all I see is these brownish red flashes going through the tree. It looks like something taller than me. The way it's moving, I can almost picture arms either swinging or pumping, and it's going through the And I'm standing there, like I said, I'm thinking, what is this? It ain't a deer, it ain't a bear. And finally, it went on down the draw there, and it's around a bend in the trees off of my property, on in a deeper holler where it was outside, and I could still hear it crash. It sounded like a bulldozer or a steamroller going through there. And I went out the next day, went down through there, and limbs snapped, even small saplings just plowed over. But I remember standing there, and I'm watching it running down through there, what I could see of. And finally, I guess my self-preservation or fear or whatever you want to call it, common sense kicked in. It's like, you're standing here with not so much as a toothpick to defend yourself. What are you going to do if it turns around and comes back? So finally, I snapped out of it and went back in the house. It was like, maybe standing here waiting to see what it does next ain't such a good idea. I'd say it was probably 30 or 40 yards from me when it first took off, which that's 90 to 100 feet or so, which is plenty close enough. I don't want to get within arm's distance of one of them myself.
I could have picked up a rock.
I don't believe they're all inherently violent, but we got some feedback somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from now. I shut everything else down. Oh. Well, I heard it then, and we're not even talking. Anyway, so that's the one encounter, and that's how it usually goes. Most people are lucky if they have one sighting in a lifetime. I've had some other activity and another partial sighting. Mom's actually had better luck than me at seeing stuff. And when this all first started, she thought I was loony. When I was first like, Mom, we got a Sasquatch around here. She's like, oh, don't even start that crap, And I eventually convinced her. I was going to the first Crypticon they had in Frankfurt 4 years ago. And she didn't want me to go by myself, be on the roads going 60, 80 miles late at night coming home. So she goes with me. Well, she starts seeing the evidence and hearing them talk. We get home at night. She's like, there might be something to this. I was like, well, now. About time you come around. After years of telling you, your son, he's a nut.
My wife,
we usually have at least a couple of shredders here.
She just used to just laugh at me over when I would find a new cryptid or something that I've never heard of. I would tell her about it, and she would just laugh at me. but she always supported me with everything I done. When I started up with the con, she was right there by my side, helping me through the whole thing, you know. And she passed away September to 2019 last year, and it's been pretty rough. But I've decided that it's just been long enough for me to grieve. Of course, I'll grieve the rest of my life, but she always wanted me to continue doing, my passion. Continue helping people with our paranormal research, which are our best to help whoever we can. If we can't figure out what's going on in a home or a business, we have connections. We start putting people with people that we know that can help them, especially if they're far away from us. We'll try our best to find somebody close by that can help them, whether it's cryptid research or it's paranormal. It's crazy. Some of the things that we can see in this world, and I tell a lot of people, it even says in the Bible that God made creatures visible and invisible, and it could go for something so minute that we can't actually see it, or it could be a living thing that you can't see with the naked eye. But there's things out there that we can't quite understand, and I believe that we're not meant to understand it. A lot of people believe, especially researchers in the cryptid field, they'll believe one day that it'll come to light, that one day they'll come back, and it's just crazy.
There's no predicting them. We'll go for weeks and months here and not hear so much as a knock or a whoop. And then, like I said, one day they're back. I don't know where they go, why they go there, or why they come back. I have noticed it seems like, and this is kind of weird, when they leave, everything leaves. Seems like the wildlife just drops off to nothing. And when they, one or the other will be back, and then you'll notice either the wildlife comes back in and activity picks up, or vice versa. Activity will start to pick up. All of a sudden, you start seeing deer and stuff again. But as far as the calls and stuff like that, people ask why you do them. I mean, if you're out there, you got to do something if you want to get results. Everybody
Oh
laughs
yeah.
about the hoops and hollers and calls and three knocks. Well, what are you just going to stand there with your thumb in your butt and hope something happens? I ain't going to stand out there for hours at a time. I lost you again. Give it a second, see if Jimmy comes back here.
You lost me again there for a second. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, you got to try something, and tree knocks and calls work as well as anything else. I've experimented with gifting. I've had one or two interesting transactions or whatever you want to call them. You try gifting at all, or
No, I haven't tried gifting. Like I said, where I seen this thing at, I haven't been back up there in the year. I've give it just enough time to calm down up there in that area where I'm going. Here, starting in the next couple months, I'm going to go back up there and start the research back up. And I plan on setting out some cameras, which I know you set out a camera, it's hard to catch anything. But even if I catch some wildlife, so that I'll know that there's wildlife in that area, that'll be something good. Because we all know when it comes to Bigfoot and stuff, you want to look for those food sources, water sources, just to be a good habitat for, Bigfoot. So that's hopefully I'll get to that here in the next couple months. I might even try to wait till springtime to where it actually will the weather get a little bit better, get a little bit warmer, and it won't be as hot. I had a funny feeling I was being watched. And I look over my shoulder here behind me, and the cat's behind me now.
All right, the internet seemed to smooth out for a minute. Anyway. Well, like you're saying, food and water. I think one of the popular misconceptions with people is you have to go 50 miles out in the middle of absolute buddy into nowhere to encounter these creatures. I don't think that's so, because if you only encountered them where nobody's at, then nobody would ever see them because nobody's out there. I mean, you go a mile or two into the woods. Sometimes you don't even have to go in the woods. If you read reports, listen to podcasts and stuff, I'd say 75% of them happen within a mile or two of a road or a house. You don't have to go off the map to run into one of these things.
Anywhere there's a wood line, I believe a property line, as long as there's some good woods, it can happen anytime. Mm-hmm. You can see anything on your property or crossing the road in front of your house.
Yeah.
But most of the reports that I get here in the area that I've got from, that me and my friend Thomas share, it's usually a lot happens on long roads where there's not much people around. And like I said, here where I live at in Harlan, we're right smack dab in the middle of the mountains. I mean, it's crazy some of the things that you'll hear and see out here in these woods.
Oh, yeah. I'm not as remote as you are there in Harlan. I'm about 15 miles from Cynthiana, which is the county seat of Harrison County. And I'm about 15 miles from Falmouth, which is the county seat of Blannton County. I'm pretty much dead square in the middle between them. We're not secluded. We're rural farmland, woods. And there's houses out here, but I mean, normally, just like my house, my house is close to the road, but you walk down my backyard, 50 yards, you're in the woods, and not just scraggly copses of woods, actual thick, gnarly woods. You have a meadow here and there, a clearing. There's creeks, ponds, and lakes everywhere. You got the North Licking and the Main Licking runs through Harrison, Scott. So there's water sources everywhere. Now, the deer population, like I said there, for a few months, it dropped off to nothing. I bet I didn't hear 5 gunshots all deer season this year. So it wasn't just me. It wasn't nobody else seeing deer either. I wasn't getting nothing on trail cam. And it wasn't just deer. I mean, you rarely saw a squirrel, a rabbit, a possum, a skunk, a raccoon, nothing. It's kind of creepy. It was like everything just left. It's part of the county or country. And they're starting to slowly trickle back. I saw some deer on the trail cam the other night. But like I said, there's a difference between secluded and rural. People think you have to go out in the middle of the Ozark Mountains or deep up into Colorado to run into these things. And to me, it just I'm like you. I think they're basically anywhere that's at least rural. Now, I do have a couple of reports around Harrison County. I've talked to people that saw them within a mile of the city limits. And Cynthiana's not a huge town, but still, to think one of these things is stomping around the river bottom, basically a half a mile from the courthouse. That's pretty brazen on its part.
Oh, yeah. I believe a lot. I have a theory, too, that I'll talk about real quick. The theory actually is I believe that a good 80% of all sightings happen to be juveniles. And the reason why I say that is your older Squatch has been around longer. They've soaked in knowledge to stay away from humans and stuff. So they try to stay away from the trails and stuff where there's heavy traffic, areas where there's a lot of hiking, and places like that. Your juveniles are curious. And as how that old saying goes, curiosity kills the cat. That gets them every time. And I believe that's the reason why we have a lot of sightings, and they're the younger generation, because the older ones, they know to stay away from humans and not let curiosity get to them to where they'll get caught, get seen, or something like that. Just the mannerisms of the thing that I seen up on the mountain, it acted like, it didn't act adult-like to me. Its movements and the way it ran and stuff, it acted clumsy. And I don't know, it gave off that vibe that it was an actual, I was thinking it was juvenile also.
You could be very, very well be right. I mean, like I say all the time, nobody's right and nobody's wrong until we got a body or a live one where we can sit back and study it, watch it, and then we can see who was right and who was wrong. If you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles, the podcast, like Wes Germer says all the time, I don't have one in my garage studying it, so I'm not an expert. There are no experts.
No, it's like I always say, what you're saying about the people are just knowledgeable.
Get caught. He's a little bit muffled there.
Like I always say, like you said, there's no such thing as an expert, but there are knowledgeable people on the subject, and those are the ones that you want to pay attention to.
Yeah, I've had people unfriend me and get madder than fire because I won't acknowledge them as an expert. I'm like, well, I'm not an expert either. It ain't like I'm insulting you or running you down. I'm lumping you right in there with me. Oh no,
exactly.
No, you can't be an expert on something that isn't proven yet. If you were an expert, you would have proven it. And it's only happened. Most Sasquatch researchers I run into are the nicest, salt of the earth people you ever meet in your life. I've ran into one or two that really pushed my buttons.
I hate to say it, but I've ran into more than just one or two.
Maybe I've just been lucky and ran into the good ones. But another thing you talk about juveniles, you have so many roadside sightings or roadside crossing sightings where if they have stayed back in the trees and waited 10 or 15 seconds till the vehicle passed, nobody'd ever seen them. I've got a couple of theories on that. You talk about juveniles. I said some people when they were younger played chickens with trains. The juvenile Sasquatches got a game they play where, hey, here comes a vehicle. Let's see how close we can run in front of it without getting hit. And that might be attributing a little bit too much intelligence to them, or a little too much human intelligence. But it could be something as simple as that. They're messing with you. Because I often get the feeling around here what goes on. Every now and then I call it a big game of cat and mouse, and I'm the mouse. If I move the cameras over here, the activity picks up over here. It's only a 7.5 acre farm. People don't think that's big until you hike around it one day, moving cameras and stuff. But same thing with cars and vehicles. And another thing, and I've talked about how they seem more aggressive towards fishermen in boats, especially. I said, maybe when it comes to vehicles, cars and boats, they don't recognize humans when we're inside a vehicle. They see a vehicle as just a big, loud something, car or boat, either one. And especially a juvenile, I say juvenile Sasquatch might be just like juvenile teenage guys. You know, they think they're the baddest thing walking. So you come into
Yeah.
their territory in a car or a boat, they're going to run you back out of there. They're going to show you who's cock of the walk, so to speak. You're on their turf. I think that's maybe why you get more aggressive behavior towards fishermen for some reason.
It could
Well,
be
like you said,
too.
this was something that's a juvenile.
It could be that, it's a possibility that it just might be a territorial thing. If there's not, maybe enough females around, that they think that they have to protect them. And you would think if you corner a mother animal and she's with her young, she's going to do whatever she can do to protect and get in between you and them. So it's a possibility that people that are actually running into these occasions where they're having these, ticked off Bigfoot, is they're actually protecting their young. Their young is in the area. A bear. We have an overabundance of black bear here in the county where I live at. I mean, you can go out into the backyard and see them. And I live in a small little community here called Dixietown, and there's a river right behind my house, and I've even seen them on the riverbank during the daytime. We've had them run down through the neighborhood here. Deer, bear, coyotes. I mean, it's just crazy. But you corner a mother and her young, like I said, she's going to do what she has to do to protect it. Maybe it's a possibility that when they get aggressive like that, they're trying to direct your attention so that the others can get away or their young can get away. I mean, you just got to use common sense and think about it real hard. I know it's hard to do that when you see something like that, but that's when you're away from it and you're able to think a little bit better. And that's when you actually really are able to think about it and put some theory on it.
Yeah. Like you, I try to use common sense with my experiences, like the one I had where it took off. I don't think it was running from me. I don't think for a second whatever it was scared of me. Because, like I said, if it hadn't made a sound, I'd have never known it was there. It was just getting away from me. It wasn't scary. It wasn't running from me. It was running away from me. There's a difference. And to your point about cornering something, the old expression, nothing's more dangerous than a cornered rat. You don't think a rat or a mouse is a dangerous animal, back one in a corner.
Oh, yeah.
Let alone a bear or something like that. And like you said, especially when it comes to young, the old sayings, I keep quoting the old sayings, but the females are more dangerous of the species a lot of times, and a lot of species. I could make a joke about humans in particular. I mean, I know one of the best examples, lions. Everybody knows lionesses are actually more aggressive than male lions. A female lion will straight eat you up over her cubs. Same with a bear. Now we don't have bear up here. I'm in north central Kentucky. I'm about 55, 60 miles from the Ohio River. Every few years you'll have, I saw a bear. Maybe a straven wanders through, or we had one earlier this summer. And my mom and aunt went nuts. You got to quit going down in the woods. Somebody saw a bear. There's a bear around here. You're going to get ate. It's like, I haven't seen anything to make me think there's a bear around here. And I even joked, everybody always said if somebody saw a Bigfoot, well, maybe you saw a bear. I was like, maybe they saw a Bigfoot and thought it was a bear. Because you have one person that sees a bear. I mean, something as big as a black bear, you think more than one person would see it if it was around. Especially you got guys like me with trail cams out and everything like that, and out wandering around looking for Bigfoot. I think I'd find a big pile of bear poop or something if he was around. But, I mean, the lady that claimed to have seen it might have very well seen a bear, and he just was passing through, and he could be north in Pendleton County or south in Bourbon County now. It's been months. He could be clear down where you're at now. But I always find it interesting, little things like that. Somebody saw a bear. Well, did they see a bear, or did they see something else and think it was a bear? I mean, You know, it's just odd. One person saw a bear crossing the field in broad daylight, and nobody else has seen this bear. Makes you wonder. And of course, broad daylight makes you wonder what a bear or a Sasquatch either one was doing across in the field in broad daylight. But you would think they'd wait the dark or stay in the tree line, but
There's usually a couple questions that I'll ask when somebody says they've seen a Bigfoot. One question is, what color was it, and how tall was it? And usually, if they say they don't say much about well, I was too far away from it. The third question I'll ask, was it walking on 2 feet or 4? And if they say no, it was walking through a field on 2 legs, then that's Then I'll go into more
bears
depth
don't go
about.
far on 2 legs.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And that's where you get a lot of people.
I didn't know it
if you
till
say
Daniel
you've seen
Benoit
something like that,
educated
they'll
me.
do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, Daniel Benoit educated me about my side. He's like, he asked me a simple question. He said, was it running downhill? I said, well, it was on a downhill slope. They gradually went steeper and further downhill. He's like, well, I believe you saw a Sasquatch and not a bear, because bears can't run downhill because their front legs are shorter than their hind legs.
Yep.
So if they run downhill, they end up
They'll top over.
downhill.
Yeah, they'll roll.
Their weight would take them. Yeah. And he said, I didn't know that till Daniel explained it to me. And I was like, well, there's just one more point in the Sasquatch column for when anybody, oh, you saw a bear. No, I did not see a bear. What a bear looks like, okay? I mean, and 9 out of 10 witnesses, I think, know what a bear looks like. They've seen them in the zoo or on TV at least. And like you said, if it's on his hind legs running like a man, that's not a bear. Now, as far as color,
I've had people. I've had people send me pictures of Bigfoot footprints before, and come to find out, all it was just bear tracks. And I've actually got into some arguments with folks. And one time, just to prove my point, I actually went to this guy that sent me these footprints after I told him they were bear tracks, and he wanted to argue with me over it because he was older than me, that I didn't know what I was talking about. So I took some photos of some friends of mine that had been sent tracks of stuff too, and pictures of bear prints, and finally explained to him and got it through his head that it was a bear track because Bigfoot footprints don't have claws. I've never seen a Bigfoot
that's what I was
footprint
thinking
with
exactly.
claws.
The claws was a dead giveaway.
And I explained to him that it was just double stepping in the front prints, which is making it look elongated. And he finally accepted it after, there was people, my other research friends were contacting me and saying, this guy's saying you're crazy. And I'm like, wow. Well, he sent me some pictures of some bear tracks, and he said that you said that they was bear tracks. And before I could even tell him that that's what it was, and I was like, well, I took enough after about 6 or 7 of my friends let me know, hey, this guy's said, I don't know what I'm talking about. I went to the guy's home and said, we need to talk about this. And I got my folder out that I brought with me with the evidence, the pictures and stuff, and all that I needed to present to him. And I laid it out right there in his driveway on his car hood and said, here, this is what this is. And I explained to him, I said, see these tracks here? Do you see any long claw marks or claws in any footprint that is Bigfoot footprints? And he said, no. And I said, there you go, because they don't have claws. I said, their foot is like ours. They have a flat foot, except ours has an arch, and their structure of their foot won't allow their foot to come up off the ground like ours do. And finally, he got it through his head what I was saying to him, and he finally accepted it. And he finally apologized to me and apologized to my other friends that I'd came out to his property and talked to him about it. But yeah, he was telling everybody I was crazy and I didn't know what I was talking about. And, I just it is what it is. You're gonna get people like that a
Well, I
lot.
ran into that. Yeah, I ran into that not just with Bigfoot. Unfortunately, some people have got the disposition. If they're older, they're automatically right. And I've got all the
Oh,
respect in the world for my elders, but being older does not make you automatically right.
exactly.
You may be more experienced, you may be more knowledgeable, but in this particular instance, you could also be wrong. And like I said, that's not just Bigfoot. I've had arguments over vehicles about stuff like that. An older guy, oh, that's a Chevy. I was like, no, that's a Dodge. He was facing away from us. Oh, it's a Chevy. I said, come here, walk around to the front. What's that? It's a Dodge emblem. And I mean, he's just like your guy, If I had to drug him around to the front of the car and showed him the Dodge emblem, it was Chevy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we was like half a parking lot away from it, but I could still tell from where I was standing that was a Dodge. And he swore it was a Chevy. I walked him over there. Look at the emblem. And like I said, some people just are almost desperate to be right for some reason. I've never really understood that. Another thing about the footprints I was going to mention, from what I understand, Bigfoot walks the tightrope, 1 foot right in front of the other.
Yeah.
Whereas a bear's got 4 feet, you got front foot, back foot, front foot, back. You have side by side instead of in a line, like I said, almost walking a tight. And even humans don't walk that tightrope, it seems like, as well as a Sasquatch can, judging by the trackways and stuff I've seen. Because, like I said, it almost looks like they're walking down a rope, 1 foot right in front of the other. And the strides, 6 or 7 foot apart. Well, a bear can't do that either. Neither can a human. A 6 or 7 foot stride.
Bigfoot has got more of a primate style skeletal structure. They can walk in a straight line when us humans have a hard time doing that because our hips are not made like theirs are.
Yeah.
Theirs are designed to do that. And I believe it is, I don't believe in evolution, but I do believe in adaptation. And I believe over time that they have, their body has adapted to their environment and they use that to their advantage. The less tracks, you got to think, the less tracks that you're making, it's going to be hard for
somebody's going to find.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's one regret I have. My grandfather on mother's side, I was telling you, owned the property. He was half Apache, and he was the quintessential. He tracked and hunted all kinds of game. And he died when I was only 10 years old. I wish he'd lived a little longer. I could have got a little bit older and learned what that man knew about the wild and nature and tracking. If I knew half of what he knew, I'd come a lot closer to finding Bigfoot or anything else I was looking for out there.
I was lucky enough. I learned how to track from my father. He was a drill sergeant in the National Guard Army for 13 years. He taught the man tracking classes that they had back then. And that's where I learned my tracking skills was from him. And once you learn how to do it, you can just about go anywhere in the woods or on flat land, and you can track animals, humans. It doesn't matter. You just got to look for certain signs to look for. And I mean, it's real easy. It's not hard, but the more you do it and you practice it, once you're taught how to do it, the better and better you'll get at it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. For somebody that ain't really had a teacher, I think I'm starting to not do it yourself, but trial and error. I just go out there and, well, I didn't notice that last time I was out here, but now that I see it, how did I miss it? And then I'll
Yeah,
put that in my
but you
little
also
middle
know what to
filing
look for
cabinet.
too.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I put that in my little middle filing cabinet. I'm like, the next time you go out, see if you see anything like this. And slowly but surely, like I said, I'm still by no means. I always tell people I'm not one of those guys that Lewis and Clark stopped to ask them for directions on their way through. But I'm getting better. I mean, like I said, for somebody that's essentially taught himself,
Well, the first thing that my
and I'm not
dad
trying to
taught
brag or
me
anything.
about tracking was, and it's a common sense thing too, if you really think about it. When you go out into the woods, your sunlight hits the top layer of leaves, of course, and it's going to dry that top layer out.
Mhm.
Anytime you look in an area and you notice that the leaves have been turned over and you have a wetter side or a brighter side from where the sunlight will fade out a leaf real quick, no matter how long it's been there. That's just the way sunlight is designed. God designed it himself. And if you look for that, the wetter side of the leaf, you can tell that something has been through there. And all you just got to keep going with it. And watch the neighbor's dog if he runs around in a field. After the dog is gone, go out there and look. Practice that tracking, and you'll pick it up real quick. Like I said, it's just a lot of it's common sense. Just knowing what to look for and
I'll
keep
tell you what
practicing
helped
it
me a
over and
whole
over.
lot. Give me just a second. I got it laying where I can get to it. 1 second.
There's a lot of good books out there too on tracking.
I don't know if I've got that where the camera.
Oh yeah,
Best
you
total
can't go wrong
outdoorsman.
with you can't go wrong with those type of survival books and stuff, because usually there are sections in there for tracking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one thing. And me and my dad get along better now than we did when I was a kid. But I love my dad and everything. But one thing he gave me was a love for reading. Like I told you, first Bigfoot book I ever saw was one he brought on in the library. He gave me a love for reading. I read everything from the Bible to comic books. And I got a stack of books over here now that I got for Christmas. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The one I'm reading now is 6. Got 3 more on my way. Books. 7 of those books are Bigfoot related. So that's part of my research and study. People are like, well, you can't learn anything out of them by reading a book, sitting at the house or watching videos on computer. Yes, you can. You can learn a lot that way. Because a lot of the researchers that wrote those books have been doing it a lot longer than I have.
Like I said, before I even lost weight, before I had bariatric surgery, I was really big. I constantly was on websites, reading stories, just sticking my nose in books and the internet. You will learn a lot. You take what you get from the books and you put it to the field. Yeah, you go out, what they call boots on the ground. You get out there and you just do it.
Yeah.
That's how you gain experience in this field. If you're a couch warrior, keyboard jockey as they call it, you're not going to learn anything. You have to get out there and get the experience. One thing that I always tell a lot of people too, it's like you always look at animal prints when you go out. Always study your wildlife in your area, study those prints. When you come across something that someone says, hey, I found this crazy print, could it be Bigfoot? You'll know whether to distinguish an animal print from a human print and something else. And that's one thing I always tell everybody too, that I talk to about, if they're going to get into studying Sasquatch. Study human anatomy, because it helps, especially the foot. study the human foot, because I've come across places where I've actually seen bare footprints. Don't know what made this person that was walking on the trail take their shoes off, but it was an actual human footprint, bare footprint
Oh, you know what you're getting into there.
that walked a couple hundred yards. It was crazy.
You know what you're getting into there. People in the woods taking their shoes off. You're getting into David Pilates 411 territory there. They always
yeah.
find them without their shoes.
Yeah. And this area was really close to a walking trail too. It was a couple miles away, but what I believe it was, somebody had probably got something in their shoe, and they was trying to get it out as they were walking, and they just put them footprints down there. And I was just like, because all of a sudden you see the shoe prints come back and the footprint disappear. So, you know, it doesn't take rocket science to realize they probably had something in their shoe.
Like I said, a lot of times common sense, the most obvious answer, is the answer. That's like all people, well, it sounded like a coyote, but stop. If it sounded just like a coyote, chances are it was a coyote. Now, I'm not saying all the time, because that gets into, people say Bigfoot can mimic everything under the sun, depending on who you listen to. Now, I've heard some bird calls down here that sound like a dove, like a mourning dove. We have a mourning dove, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
That's fine. It could be a mourning dove, but if it's a mourning dove, it weighs 60 pounds, and it's snuck in my back pocket. It's that loud and that deep.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I call it. That was my 60-pound dove sounding off for me. And we'll hear, Mom hears it more than me early in the mornings, because she's an early riser. A real loud whistle. It's almost like the, everybody had that buddy in high school that could just bust your eardrums. That long, loud. That's what it sounds like. Almost a cross between a whistle and a shriek. Only, pump it up by 10 again. How loud it is. I've heard it at times. I'll never forget, I come in from work one night, and I was bent over getting something out of the passenger side of the car. So I got my tail end stuck out the driver's side of the car, rummaging about. And all of a sudden I hear that. I mean, it sounds like it's right behind me. I had the Scooby-Doo moment. I was like, I'm going to turn around and shake hands with whatever this is. Finally summing up my gumption. And all I saw was tree movement in the darkness down fence line at the bottom of the yard, tree line. I got a glimpse of, looked like green eye shine and something 7 or 8 foot off the ground, took off through the tree. And that's when you kind of, that was close. Because it wasn't probably, like you said, 40, 50 foot from me. And a 4 foot tall fence ain't going to stop one of these things if it decides it wants to come over or through it.
Oh, no.
But I mean, the volume of that whistle shriek is, good Lord, that ain't a bird.
I've got,
now, like I said,
I don't know
about
how
some of
many
these
files from folks that send to me. What is this? What's this thing that I'm hearing? And most of the time it's an animal sound. Living here in Harlan, we have such an abundant array of wildlife that I have heard every sound of every animal in the county. And a lot of times it can be a lot of these audio clips that I get from people that they record things. It's bobcat or coyote.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of the two. It's always bobcat or coyote. And
the funny thing about mentioning coyotes, we used to have a pretty good pack that ran down here around the house, the hollers and stuff. One summer night, about 2-3 years ago now, me and Mom were sitting out on the deck. They started baying and japing and carrying on like they was chasing something. I sat there a minute, and all of a sudden you just barely hear something else mixed in behind them. Couldn't quite make it out what it was. But it wasn't a coyote. It was something different. And then all of a sudden the coyote started screaming. And I mean, you could tell something was tearing into them. And it sounded like it was a pretty good sized pack. Over a few minutes' time, you heard fewer of them screaming. Then all of a sudden, you didn't hear any coyotes. You heard that other, I don't know what it was, a scream, a roar, whatever. It was way off in the distance. But then no coyotes. And since that day, 2 or 3 years ago, I could count. I haven't seen, maybe, possibly, one either coyote or coy dog. And we barely hear coyotes around here anymore. I'm convinced the majority of them, something's wiped them out. And we don't have anything up here really that should be a natural predator for a coyote other than humans. And for years, humans, we could shoot them left and right. For every one we shot, there was 5 more where it come from. But this little area down here, I swear something has either wiped them out or chased them out, one of the two. And you know how coyotes are. Once they're in an area, it take too many things to run them out.
Yeah, the folks, these things, these creatures that we call Bigfoot are huge. They're built, they're killing machines. They could take out a human easy with no effort at all. So you got to think, what animal in their right mind would want to stay in an area where something is like that, all that activity's at? You want to stay away from things like that. Anything that's bigger than you that gives you a threat, I would want to stay away from it for sure. So I believe that's a lot of the time when people give me reports, they's like, man, after I seen this thing in this area, like a lot of hunters around here, I'll get reports from hunters and they'll say, well, you know what? The eeriest thing about the whole thing was I realized before I got out of the area, I didn't hear a bird. I didn't see an animal or anything. That's the reason why they see the Bigfoot and they want to stay out of the area because they're scared of it. They don't want something getting a hold of them and eating it. I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah. Well, the best example I can think of that, I got a friend who told me it wasn't a Bigfoot story per se through Messenger, and he's an avid hunter. He shed hunts and everything else. I mean, he goes in deep. Been doing it since he was a kid. And he said he was out turkey hunting one night, right around sundown, sitting there, and he's blind. He said, I heard this ungodly roar. And he said, I don't know what it was. I ain't never heard nothing like it before. I ain't heard nothing like it since. He said, but I swear to you, it was like even the wind stopped when it did it. He said, I got up and got the hell out of there. He said, I didn't want to know what it was. But that stuck with me after he told me that about it seemed like even the wind stopped. And like you said, I hear that, and not just reports to me personally, but reading reports online and podcasts, books, that weird silence, like everything finds somewhere else to be. Or stops what it's doing, hunkers down, and don't make a peep until they leave the area. Because like you said, they're the alpha predator. There's absolutely, everybody thinks humans, but I got news for you. Thing about a gun is you got to have a chance to use it. We're not the alpha predator up against these things, even with a gun. That's why I don't even carry one when I go out, because I don't know how smart they are. I've said this 100 times. I don't know if they know what a gun is, but they know what a gun does. If you point a gun at them, you better make the first shot count. Because, first of all, if the first shot don't stop it, you're liable to get that gun shoved somewhere you don't want it. Second of all, you're shooting at the one in front of you. How do you know there ain't more around? If you shoot one and there's more around, you're really getting ready to have a bad day. So I don't even carry a gun with me. I mean, I carry a buck knife and a machete in case I run up on a snake or bobcat, which that'd be bad enough trying to fight off a bobcat with a buck knife and a machete, but I'm definitely not going to try to fight off a Sasquatch with them. And I'll lay down and play dead like with bears. Give me a second, I won't have to play. I'll be dead. But
yeah, the area around here is so bad with black bear though that you'll have to carry a weapon with you. If you don't, you'll run up on them, and most of the time they've got a young with them. It's even throughout the year they'll have young with them, and you can put yourself in a bad situation. In the same area that I have the sighting, there was a mama the year before run me off of the mountaintop up there and back down off the other side. And I kept my eye on her the whole time. And thank God the terrain on that side of the mountain was not bad. And I was able to walk down backwards and keep my eye on her because she walked making that blowing noise, that aggressive blowing noise. That's that warning, you better back off. And I kept my eye on her for over 100 yards before I got out of sight. But she was letting me know she was mad, and she was backing me up literally away from her cubs. It was crazy. And I told my wife, I said, I'll never go back up to that area again without a gun with me.
Oh, I understand you're in bear country. You carry a gun. Like I said, down here, about the worst thing you'd have to worry about is a coyote or a bobcat, which is bad enough. And like I said, here lately, I don't have to worry about coyotes because apparently something killed them all. Because I don't know, 2 miles west of here, there's a great big ravine. And I mean, it is deep. And that's where those coyotes hung out. You don't even hear them back in there around that ravine anymore. Because I always figured they had caves back along that ravine and down towards the bottom of it or in the sides of it somewhere. You don't hear them anymore. But I can't prove it. I never did find any bodies or anything. Who knows? Maybe these things drag them in a cave somewhere, store them for winter, just like a bear or a squirrel. Do you
Speaking
get a
of
lot of
caves,
reports down in your area?
speaking of
You
caves,
talking about you get, yeah.
We have the biggest abundance of caves just here in this area where I live at in the county. Me and my buddy Matt, we get out and we go exploring, we go hiking, we get on 4-wheelers, his Jeep, he's got a Jeep, we get in that old Cherokee he's got, we just go in different areas, and we've seen some of the biggest caves around here that you will ever see in your life. But what was your question again? I interrupted you there a little bit
You
before
was
you
talking
got it
about
out.
reports from hunters. I just curious, you get a lot of Bigfoot Sasquatch activity reports down there, your area?
In the past year, I haven't gotten hardly. I think I've had 2, when usually I at least get a couple a year. But this past year, I've only had 1 report. It seems like I get more reports when I'm active online doing things that pertain to Bigfoot and stuff like that. People will pop up and say, hey, can I message you? You mind if I talk to you? I had a sighting. I seen something. Can you help me with it? Even in other groups that I'm on Facebook, if someone pops up and says, I've seen this, even if there's like 5 or 6 people talking to them, I'll still pop in and give my 2 cents and ask questions. And but other than that, I've only had one this past 2020. I've only had 1 sighting, but a lot of people have stayed home because of the virus and stuff that's been going around too. So this year, if it gets better, I look for it to more sightings come my way.
Or I haven't been doing it as long. I don't get as many current reports. I get this happened years ago, or I know somebody it happened to. I get a lot of those. You get a lot of that, like yesteryear or third, fourth, and
there's actually my buddy Thomas sent me a report that he gotten from someone that lived close to him about a supposed dogman sighting that happened just down the road, but it happened back right around 1981, in between 79 and 81. And that's the first time I'd ever heard about anything like that in this area. But it was reported that this thing it was hairy, like a Bigfoot, and tall, broad shoulders, but it had this huge head on it. And the guy said it looked like you took a dog's head and stuck it on this thing's shoulders. And he's like, when it turned to look, it turned its whole head around. He said the mouth, the muzzle even come away from the face. He got a real good look at this thing. And but yeah, that I get a lot of those that even Thomas does too, reports from older people that report back from the 70s There was a lady that I got a report off of here in the county. We had a flood back in 77, which was the year I was born, which was right around 42 years ago. And this flood devastated the whole county. I mean, it was real bad. She seen this Bigfoot in her backyard going through her neighbor's garbage can. She said there was probably about 20 foot in between her home and her neighbor's home, and they had a big chain link fence that ran right in between them. And she seen this thing with her eyes, and she startled it because she had seen it out the window, went, opened the door up, snuck out there. She said, at first I thought it was a bear, but when it turned around, looked at me, and I seen its face, she said it dropped what it was getting out of the garbage can and just turned around and walked away. Like if I moved slow enough, she said it didn't run. She said it moved slow. She said it went right back up the woods behind their house there. I mean, just walked right, pretty as you please, right up the steep side of the mountain. She said it didn't even worry about where it was putting its footing at. She said it just took right off up the mountain. And that was in 77 when that happened.
What she's talking about there, right up beside the mountain, it wasn't a mountain, but where I was telling you, I thought I had my possible roadside crossing sighting. On the right-hand side of the road, the highway there, 27 north, 3 lanes, there's a embankment that's like that. I mean, it's steep. There's a little ravine right next to the shoulder of the road, just a little dip, and then you go right back up that. And I noticed the shadow of it as it was going up that through the trees. The same thing she said. It never stooped forward. It never slowed down, just with ease. There ain't a man alive that could go up that kind of incline and keep his back straight. Oh, no. Most men would have to actually reach up and pull themselves with trees or
exactly
get almost on all fours. This thing just trucked right up it. And that was one of the things that stuck with me. I was like, I'd be almost on all fours crawling up that or pulling myself up it. And this thing, and the way it crossed the road, everybody talks about the way they move. This is a 3-lane highway. I'd say 7 steps tops. It crossed in 7 steps. And it wasn't, like she said, it wasn't running. It was like it was its, I'm not going to say casual, but almost natural gait. It wasn't really hurrying. Another thing I thought was funny about it is it was like a side glance I got of it. That's how I could tell how thick it was through the chest and the back. It never like put its arm up to block the headlights for me and the other car or nothing. It just kind of tucked its head to one side and trucked on. Almost like either it didn't know we was there or didn't care, which might have been a little bit of both. But like the way they can traverse even the roughest terrain, like you said, is just incredible to me. Some of the videos you stuff watch online, that's like, I know you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's one researcher that's got some videos that's highly controversial. And you probably figure out who I'm talking about already. And one of them, the Bigfoot's going up an incline like that, and he takes a step upward. There's got to be an 8 or 9 foot stride up, probably a 35 to 40 degree angle of embankment. It's like, there is not. That's a guy in a suit. Find me the guy in that suit. I want to see him do it. You probably know exactly the video I'm talking about.
That would have to be a top athlete. I would like to shake that man's hand because there's a lot of people. The person that you're talking about, like you said, is controversial. But that one clip there showing that Bigfoot running up that cliffside, it could be a human. Common sense would tell you that. It couldn't be a human.
No.
But now some of his other evidence that he has is questionable, of course. And even the researcher, you have to be skeptical. Yeah. Because then you'll turn into the map money makers of everything that goes on while you're out in the field. Oh, that was a Bigfoot. That was his Bigfoot. You know,
I sometimes skirt that line. I try not to. But I get excited and I hear every time a twig snaps. Where's that? Where's that? Where's that? I'm turning into Scooby-Doo out there. You know, I'm chasing my own tail in a circle trying to find Bigfoot. sometimes. But like I said, you got to try not to do that. Just
Yeah,
like, and
you
that's
get.
not just Bigfoot. That's paranormal research and everything.
Hmm.
I don't do it, but I know some friends that do. Not every speck is an orb. Not every bump in the night is Grandma Matilda coming down the steps. I remember I had a friend. He lived out in the country, and his house was haunted. But what it started, he said, I keep hearing doors open and shut late at night. I went out there, stayed with him a time or two. I heard him. I stood there listening. I was like, that sounds like more like it's coming from outside than inside. He's like, but it still sounds like a door shutting open. I was like, yeah, but it sounds like it's coming from outside. Time passed. It took us a week or two to figure this out. But I was standing out in the yard one night waiting because he said it happens about the same time every night. And that right there was like, well, I don't think most ghosts wear a time piece. So I went out in the yard and listened one night while I was there, and I heard it sound just like doors open and shutting. What in the hell is going on here? After 2 or 3 nights, I noticed one of his neighbors went past about the same time. And not long after they went past, you would hear this sound. I told him one night, I was like, come here with me. He's like, you know what time it is? I'm like, yeah, just stand here and listen. Well, his neighbor went past. I didn't say nothing. A couple minutes later, his neighbor lived, I think, maybe a mile up the road to most. I said, now listen. I said, I can almost set a time watch by this now, stopwatch by this now. I've figured it out. Slam, slam, slam. He's like, there it was. I was like, what just happened just a couple minutes ago? Probably 2 minutes tops. He's like, nothing. I was like, your neighbor went past. He's like, okay. I was like, did your neighbor come past about the same time every night? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's his car doors. You hear him getting out of the car and going in the house. And where he was in the country, sound carries. He's a mile up
Yeah.
the road. It sounded like he was in the house with you. Where he was when, he slammed the truck door like he's trying to cave it in. But it took me a little while to figure it out, but I actually figured that one out for him. I was like, you're hearing your buddy up the road slam his truck door when he comes in from work. I don't know if he's in a bad mood trying to rip the doors off the hinges everywhere he goes or what, but that's what you're hearing. And it took him a time or two of watching him go past and then timing it just long enough for him to get to his house. He's like, well, I guess you're right. I was like, I guess I'm right too. I can't prove it. I ain't going to go, hey,
I learned
could
to
you
be
slam your door for
skeptical
me?
when it comes to research and stuff because of the fact that I was in the paranormal field before I got into cryptids. And I carried what I learned with trying to debunk everything in the paranormal field. I carried it over with me to the cryptid field. And I tried to debunk everything that I see. You wouldn't. The god awfulest bunch of pictures that I get of what people call structures and things like that. I have made quite a lot of people upset with me. The only way that I will take in consideration that it is a structure is if it is away from homes. I'm talking miles away, and there's not a lot of traffic of foot traffic, meaning people are hiking through there, or it's on a property. Because of the fact that deadfall is really, really bad. I've even been in places before and seen deadfall fall right up against trees.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pine trees in our area are dying from that beetle that was eating the pine trees and stuff up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's crazy of the deadfall that you see in the area. And I've had folks send me pictures from around here. Is this a structure from a Bigfoot? And, I have to break their heart. I was like, did you look around the base for footprints? That's one clue you need to look for. And they say, well, I didn't see nothing there. All I seen was our boot prints. I'm like, okay, well, that's one sign. You look, I was like, where were you at? Were you close? Oh, we was next door at my neighbor Billy Joe's house. Well, that's two right there. That's not looking good for you. And it's really, to me, cryptid research is common sense.
Yeah.
Use common sense and think rationally. Don't jump to conclusions about things, and you'll learn. That's how you learn. It's through trial and error. Don't be afraid to reach out to one of your Bigfoot buddies, that especially if they have more experience with it than what you do. Like my friend Thomas, he's got close to 40 years of research experience.
One of
I'm
my books
always
I've got on
sending
my
him
way is
stuff.
his.
Oh
He
yeah,
wrote the book
Thomas is a
called
good guy,
The
man.
Locals. And that one of his books, The Locals?
I don't think so. If it is,
Written by
the
Thomas
man,
somebody.
he has so many books out and stuff about Bigfoot. He's got a film that just came out, the Legend, Bigfoot the Legend, which is his newest film. He's part of the crew with the CryptoCon this year. He's going to be helping out with that, and we've got. It's going to be a great.
I'm friends
I'm
with him
hoping
on
this year will
Facebook.
be a great one.
Yeah.
He's very, very
I was thinking
knowledgeable.
he wrote that book, The Locals. It might be another Thomas.
But
Thomas Markham, Thomas Contrail.
he's one.
Both of them's got, like you said, several books. It's one or the other.
Yeah, he's one of those people that I will go out looking for Bigfoot with at the drop of a dime. You know, I just we've been out 2 or 3 times together. I've been to his area where he researches and stuff before, and you really have to trust someone real good before you would do anything like that. But
Bring
you
them
know,
into your area. Yeah.
oh yeah, and he's a good friend. I've learned so much from Thomas. And, I mean, what can I say? He's just an awesome guy. He knows his stuff. And he puts out some of the best films I've seen, you know, for it not to be a big time production company to do something like that. And he does it all under his own, I guess you could say, homegrown production company, Zombie Media. So, I mean, he's awesome. We recently found out not too long ago that a famous TV show about Bigfoot was being filmed in the area here where we live.
I was going to ask you about that. I think
really
I
don't
just watched the latest episode of this famous TV show last week in southeastern Kentucky. I was going to ask you how close that was to you.
It's like right here, like there's Leslie County and Harlan County is supposedly where this show, because I don't watch these shows because they're all entertainment. Me and Thomas, neither one of us was asked about anything. From what I hear, it's some people in the county that, as far as I know, neither one of them has any experience with cryptids, none whatsoever. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I know I know this person that I'm talking about. And when they see this, they're going to know that I'm talking about them. But this person, as far as I know, have only been involved in Bigfoot for about a year or 2. And you would think that they would actually go to some researchers and get their input. But of course, like me and Thomas both talked about, these shows don't want true researchers. They want to make things up because it's called entertainment. It's not real. The sad thing is, people do believe these shows when it comes to it, but 90% of what they're showing you, maybe 95% of what they're showing you, is a lie. It's made up for entertainment for the show.
Some more than others, yeah. The one thing I will say is I went to the Crypticons in Frankfurt and in Lexington. I met Cliff and Bobo. Yeah, the show was entertainment.
Awesome
and
guys.
They
Awesome
even
guys,
talked
man.
about how Hollywood had their fingers in the pie, producers and company guys. You know, we want to do this and we want to do that. But if you scoot all that off to the side, like you said, Cliff and Bobo are awesome guys, and they both know their stuff. Now, I have never met Matt Moneymaker or Renee, but those two guys, I love them. They're legit to me. Yeah, they were on a TV show, but they're actual researchers too. I mean, I'd trust either one of them to take me out in the woods and not get me killed. More or less.
You could just tell though that Cliff and Bobo both are researchers just by the way they conduct themselves during the television interviews. You could take them as that fact. Matt was just, I believe he was just there more or less for the name to be famous. But he also made himself look kind of crazy by jumping at every sound and claiming or tree structure or a footprint and claiming that's Bigfoot. You can't do that and be taken serious in the community. That's why, there's another show, Mountain Monsters. Everybody loves Mountain Monsters. I've even watched the show because of it was just entertaining factor, the way their storylines and stuff that they did. But
and that's another
taking
group
them serious, it's
maybe
kind
not
of
the show itself to take it too serious.
But
I spent time talking to Willie, the guy that builds the traps. Willie's legit. I'd go in the woods with Willie and not be worried about, is this guy going to trip over a root and shoot me in the back? Willie was
one
legit.
thing that you notice about Willie too. Willie doesn't get as much time on TV as the rest of them do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Take that as you will. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like I said, he told some stories and stuff. You realize this guy knows what he's doing out in the woods, and he spoke well for Wild Bill of all people because he's pretty much the comedy relief on the show. But Willie spoke up for Wild Bill. He's like, that's the best tracker I know. He can track anything coming or going. Like I said, I think the same thing. A whole lot of Hollywood got in its own way with that show. Because you notice when it first started out, they was pretty much always looking for Bigfoot. But the next thing you knew, they was dealing with spearfinger, witch doctors, or whatever they're supposed to be. And it just kept going. There was the rogue team, and Bigfoot body got stolen. And who knows? I mean, some of it may at least been based on fact. Like I said, a lot of it ratings. Hollywood don't care if it's true or not. They just care how many people tune in to see it.
It's money.
And I'll say this for finding Bigfoot in particular, if it wasn't for that show bringing it into the public domain, making it more mainstream, me and you probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Because finding Bigfoot put Sasquatch kind of back on the map. Interest in it had kind of all but bottomed out before that show come along. Unless you were a hardcore, somebody like me and you that reads books and actually would seek it out. But it's the mainstream media stuff before finding Bigfoot. You had to go back to maybe Unsolved Mysteries in the 80s. Did an episode every now and then. And before that, everybody talks about Leonard Nimoy, the show he did, In Search of, back in the 70s. Yeah. From like Unsolved Mysteries up to finding Bigfoot. And then finding Bigfoot opened the floodgate because after it, you had, I don't know how many cryptid and ghost shows, just like when the original Ghost Hunters opened up the floodgate for ghost shows on TV. It was like 1 week you had one on Sci-Fi, next week all of a sudden it might as well have been the Ghost Hunter Network because every other show was something to do with looking for ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
And same thing with finding Bigfoot and cryptid shows. The Travel Channel and Nat Geo and Animal Planet might as well be the cryptid channel now. Because every time you turn it on, it's some kind of cryptid, this, that, or the other on there.
Oh, yeah.
Which I will sit and watch them, just like you said, for entertainment. I'm bored. It's entertain me as much as anything else on TV right now. And you do get some nuggets from it. Every now and then you'll see a witness report or something, or they'll find a piece of evidence. You're like, all right, now that there might actually be legit. That might be the 25% of, like you said, what's legit and what ain't part of the script.
Oh, yeah. And, there's a difference, too. we're not actually saying that it's the people that are not to be taken serious. We're talking about the storyline, the stories, because you do have interviews, eyewitnesses and stuff. They're seeing these creatures. But as the show itself goes, the way they make up, things, and just to get the entertainment value, like you said, it's all about money, and that's what they're out to do. It's called entertainment for a reason.
Yeah, and I think one of the most overlooked shows out of that whole genre, if you remember, it was Fact or Fake Paranormal Files, where they would get videos off the internet, and they'd have 4 or 5 episodes. They'd pick 2 to go investigate and either try to debunk them or figure them out or agree, hey, this is what it looks like. It's a Bigfoot or a UFO or Loch Ness Monster or whatever. I thought that was one of the more underrated shows out of that whole genre. Because like you said, they would actually try to debunk something, and then if they couldn't, they would admit, hey, they might have something. And Ghost Hunters was like that when they first started out.
Josh Gates, his shows, Expedition Big, his expedition shows and stuff like that. Josh, that show, any of the shows that he did of the 2 are very underrated. You could about take them because Josh wanted to bring a show to the public that was the truth. Of course, there's an entertainment value to it, but the difference between finding Bigfoot, mountain monsters, and the shows that Josh Gates did are night and day. I would believe anything that Josh would put on TV as being, he's seen it himself. It actually happened. Because just the interviews and stuff that he does, he's just not interviewing people in America. He goes to different parts of the world and looks for things. He's been to Southeast Asia looking for orang pandak, which is supposed to be a type of Bigfoot. He's looked for the urine in China. He's been to looking for the Yeti in the Alps and up in Nepal. He's just been all over the world looking for ghosts and cryptids. Anything that you can think of, the Jersey Devil. But yeah, Fact or Fake, the Paranormal Files was a great show. And that's what that main priority of that show was to try to debunk what they were experiencing, seeing, or had seen, or the interviews that they done by these people had seen these things or experienced it. Once you can't debunk something, common sense tells you it's possibly you seen a Bigfoot, a dog man, or you experienced paranormal activity.
Yeah. And like I was going to say, Ghost Hunters was like that when they started. I remember way back when they first come on Sci-Fi, when it was just the 2 main guys and Tango and 1 or 2 others. There's only like 5 of them on the team. These guys were working for Roto-Rooter during the day and going doing investigations in their time off. I always said it was about the best example of the American dream I've ever seen. They went from working at Roto-Rooter to having, 3 or 4 TV shows now and being internationally famous. But when they first started out, 9 out of 10 places they went, they debunked it. I remember one of my favorite episodes, they went to a supposedly haunted firehouse, and they had stuff where the alarms would go off for no reason and all that, and little, whatever they call them on their uniforms, like smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors, little handheld thing. And long story short, they figured out that, like, somehow or another, the microwave in the subway next door was setting these things off. I mean, they took the time to figure that out, and right there in the episode, it's like, guys, they're not haunted. It's microwave signals somehow crossing a wire somewhere, setting your equipment off. And that always impressed me, because I never thought to go next door and see if anybody was using the microwave.
Oh yeah,
that was something. At the same time, it was so simple.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's crazy. That's if anybody that wants to get into paranormal or cryptids, if you really want to be a good researcher, try your best to debunk things, whether you're doing either paranormal or cryptids. That's what will make you a good researcher. You want to find out the truth. You don't want to bring somebody a video of someone comes to you and their house is haunted. They're seeing all these things. You don't want to bring them a video of just stories. You want to corroborate their story, but you want to show them, hey, this is what we found out. This is the reason why your doors keep coming open, because of the draft in your home, or your doors are off balance. They're not on there right. You want to do that. If people are seeing things, you want to make sure that it's not something that somebody's, say, like your orbs. That's one thing that I do not take in consideration a lot of the time is orbs, because a lot of it can be explained, dust, dander, and stuff, especially if they have a pet in their home. A true orb will make its own energy. It'll make its own light. And a lot of these orbs that you see on these shows and stuff, if you pay attention to them, if they go buy a piece of furniture, they're not making no light source. In the 10 plus years that I've been investigating, I have maybe one time seen what I would consider a true orb because it was making its own light. The light was actually pulsing, and you was seeing the shadow. It went across the tabletop, and you could see the shadow from the person that was behind the camera and stuff, because they had a light source behind them. And you could actually, when it was going through the shadow of the person that was holding the camera, you could see the light as it was pulsing on the table as it was going across. It was crazy. And like I said, that's one time that I've actually experienced that. But I do that. My sister Marcella with our group Paranormal Chaos. A lot of times if we don't see a light source off an orb, we don't take that as evidence. There's a lot of groups out there though that will do that.
Oh yeah.
But there's so many other explanations. You got to take in consideration dust, because a lot of places are dusty. I mean, that's dander, pet hair and stuff like that
Insects.
will give off reflections. Oh yeah, insects, big time. Especially if you're outside, you might as well not use outside evidence of an orb as evidence, because most of the time it's going to be an insect.
I had a trail cam video. It had this little light come down, and people, if you ever noticed my stuff, you've looked at it when I put it up on various groups, I always say possible. It's a possible print. This is a possible Bigfoot wood. Well, I had this one that looked like a little light right in the middle of the thing, and it was a deer, and it looks like the deer looks over at it and then takes off. Well, I racked my head forever and ever trying to figure out what this little light was. Is it an orb? And one of my buddies is a paranormal investigator who looked at it. It's like, you know what I think it is? I was like, what? It's like, I think it's a spider on a web dangling down in front of your camera. And the more I looked at it, you could be right. And that's what people need to, I wish to God, people in Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, whatever. If more people learn how to say, I could be wrong, or tell somebody else, you could be right. If the community as a whole can learn to do that, admit that you don't know, or you could be wrong. You hear me saying, I could be wrong all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Or the other guy could be right. I mean, and like I said, it comes back to that almost pathological need to be right. And I think that's a whole lot of the reason we don't have more proof of anything, be it Bigfoot or spirit activity or Loch Ness Monster. You got 10 researchers, and all of them wants to be the guy. I'm the one that found Nessie. I'm the one that found Bigfoot. I'm the one that figured it out. These guys didn't do it. Me. I don't care. I don't care if it's me that finds Bigfoot.
Me neither.
Bigfoot
I'm the same way.
found.
As long as somebody
I ain't
finds
making
it.
I ain't making a buck off this. I don't claim to be
Yeah.
a professional or an expert. I'm looking for answers. It's a mystery and it's driving me. I ain't gonna say it's driving me crazy, but it gets under my skin when I get to thinking about it. Because I've heard other researchers say something. Every time you think you got the answers, they change the questions. The further you go down the rabbit hole, the more you always have more questions than you do answers. And to me, that's the difference between a real good researcher and I hate saying a blowhard, is the real good researchers admit there's a whole lot I don't know. I've got more questions than I do answers. Now, if everybody
Oh
would
yeah.
come together and compare notes and cooperate, maybe we could answer some of them questions. Just, for example, you might know something that I don't for sure, and vice versa. We put our heads together. Oh, all of a sudden, we just connected some dots here. And I hate to say it, they just don't go on.
No.
I
Our
once made
community is
the comment.
separated.
I
Big
once
time
made the
separated.
comment, and it did it then, and probably do it now. I think it made some people mad. I don't know if Bigfoot eat their own, but Bigfoot community damn sure does.
True. And it's sad too that everyone thinks that they can make money off of this. Is the reason why they won't
Yeah,
share their research or share their information. As long as you take the right precautions to copyright your pictures and your evidence so that folks, won't use that, there's nothing to be worried about. I'm willing to share information that I get with anyone.
Yeah. I don't even bother to copyright because, like I said, I don't plan on ever making a dime off of it. And if somebody else can take my picture and figure out something from it, more power to you. If you find something in one of my pictures, at least be nice enough to message me or something. Hey, Barry, I found something.
That's
about
I'm
all
the
I
same
ask.
way. As long as I get the if I send someone a picture or a video, as long as I get the this video was sent to me by Jimmy. As long as they say that, I don't care what they do with it. Because there's one thing that we know for certain when it comes to Bigfoot. No one knows what it is. It's called a theory. A theory is defined as an educated guess. That means that everything about the creatures that we know is based on theory. Nobody knows anything about them. We don't know. It's the what if scenario. What if they are a Gigantopithecus, this extinct giant ape? What if they are half human? What if they're an experiment that the governments around the world have been messing around with DNA? What if they are the Nephilim from the Bible? We don't know. And as long as we all keep to our groups and keep our groups separated, we'll never know the answer until we all come as a community and share information. Then we'll get some answers.
The smaller groups like yours or mine that's on Facebook are better about sharing. And because if you ever notice, most of the groups have got the same people in them. You go to your group, my group, Daniel Benoit's group, several other groups, you see a lot of the same names and faces. So the smaller groups are better about sharing and cooperating. It's when you get up to that next tier, professional or Hollywood, the experts. And I hate to say it, a lot of times it's the guy that's been doing it for 30 or 40 years. They don't want to work with anybody else. They think for the Steven Spielberg of cryptozoology or something.
As long as they don't have the ego that goes with that, a lot of them, when they get up into years of experience, or what I like to call knowledgeability, they get that ego comes in.
Exactly.
As long as
That's
they
what I
don't
meant by
have
the
that
Steven
ego,
Spielberg of the Bigfoot world.
Yeah, as long as they don't have that ego, they're willing to share anything with you. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
especially if I think that it's going to benefit someone else. Even if it's not in an area, if it's outside of the county where I live at, I won't go outside of the county out of respect for other researchers that I know outside of my county. I will pass it on to the next person, to that researcher that's closest.
Well, that's one advantage I've got. Best I know in about a tribe, maybe 4-county area. I'm it. I'm not stepping on anybody else's toes because the toes ain't there to step on. Which, like I said, 95% of my research I do on my own property, so I can't, unless I aggravate myself somehow. I may piss myself off.
Over the whole state of Kentucky, I know probably 6 researchers, and probably 5 to 6 of them are on the eastern part of Kentucky where I'm at.
I know you, Thomas. I actually know 3 Thomases now I think about it. I know of you, Thomas Markham, Thomas Shea, Northern Kentucky Bigfoot Group. He's good, especially when it comes to tracks. You ever met him?
No, I don't think I know.
He was at the Crypticons here in Frankfort and Lexington. If you ever get a chance, as far as tracks go, he's got a track collection that rivals Jeff Meldrum's, if not surpasses it. He is the man when he comes, and I'm not trying to name drop or blow smoke up his tail end. He's just, I respect him. He's a hell of a researcher. And Bobo and Cliff will tell you the same thing about him. He's a, what was it? Cliff put it best. He said he's the best Bigfoot researcher you've never heard of. Because he's a low-key guy. He's one of them guys I was talking about. He's not a next tier where he don't want to work with nobody. He don't want to share with nobody. He'll do video stuff, teaching you how to cast prints and stuff like that, taking people on expeditions. He don't act like he's got the Ark of the Covenant in his garage or something.
He's left out. He's one of those that's left out the ego out of his research.
Exactly. Humble. Humble is a good word for it. And most of the guys, like I say, I know on Facebook stuff are like that. They're not. I've ran into 1 or 2. But for the biggest part, like I said, the lower tier or whatever you want to call us, are actually pretty down to earth, humble, everyday guys. They got a day job. Bigfooting's their hobby. Or their whatever, I don't know if hobby would be the right word, their interest or whatever. They don't call themselves professionals. They don't call themselves experts. But I'll get off that soapbox now. I know we wanted to hit some bullet points, like common topics, since nobody bothered to show up and ask questions. We just go for them. You mentioned the Dog Man. What do you think about Dog Man?
A lot of Bigfoot researchers don't believe a Dog Man. And one of the things that a lot of them can't wrap their mind around is there being a different creature out there that has the same size and build as a Sasquatch, but you're taking the canine head, put it on a Bigfoot body. In some eyewitnesses accounts, but there's a lot of eyewitnesses accounts out there that say that these creatures resemble something that you would see off of the movie The Howling or your modern day werewolf movie. A lot of people get a feeling of dread, danger when they're seeing these creatures. And which leads me to a point. A lot of your Bigfoot witnesses, they don't ever talk about them feeling danger, feel like they were in danger, or a feeling of fear when they're around a Bigfoot or they've seen a Bigfoot. But a lot of the witnesses that are seeing Dog Man I've had this awful feeling when I seen this creature, this thing right here. But you got to think, if these creatures are real. Now, I've never experienced a Dog Man, but I have had reports from other states of Dog Man. 2 of my good buddies Johnny and Elijah Henderson from Clarksville, Tennessee. They had the Cryptid Studies Institute. Those two guys right there they have the knowledge when it comes to Dogman. Jody Cook, another friend of mine, heads up the North American Dogman Project. He has an extensive background in Bigfoot and Dogman. He's a real good guy. And we talk a lot back and forth through Messenger and stuff. And we share things. If I have questions about certain things, when it pertains to Dogman, I'm always hitting these guys up for stuff. Johnny and Elijah, a father and son duo, they're just awesome people. They go to Land Between the Lakes a lot, where anybody that studies cryptids in general have heard at one point in time about the incident that happened there back in the 80s.
I just watched their episode on it not too long ago.
Yeah, that was supposedly slain by the Dogman. Supposedly they found the father and son and mother at the little RV or camper that they had. And then so many feet away from the area, the campsite, they found a little girl up in a tree, like so many feet up in a tree. What animal do you know that would be that far out towards Kentucky, or Tennessee on that border, that would be strong enough to pack a 5-6-year-old kid, little girl, up in a tree? They say that we don't have panthers. They say that we don't have mountain lions.
They can say that all they want.
Exactly. I know a teacher, a former teacher that lives here, Miss Judith Hensley, who writes a book called Panther Tales. And a matter of fact, I've got one of her books. She also writes a book called Bigfoot and Woolly Booger Tales. She's got 2 volumes of those out. A short story that I done for that one, and the second volume that she just had come out recently. I've got a story in there about the sighting that I had with the creature. But she talks about panthers. She's got pictures. She gets all kinds of pictures, video sent to her of panthers in the state of Kentucky. She gets them every year, and she compiles them in these books, these stories and these pictures and videos. And she comes up with these stories and stuff and puts them in these books. And you could take, and I know this for a fact, you can take a book of evidence and throw it right in front of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, and they would still look you in the eye and bold-faced lie to you and say there's no such thing as a black panther or big cats in the state of Kentucky.
Well, if I remember correctly,
sad.
At this point, they'll swear up and down there's none of them east of the Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe the Rocky Mountains, depending on who you ask. But you're knowing a teacher that writes about them and seen them. I don't want to use the word, I'm liable to trigger somebody. I'm sorry if I do. I can trump that. I know a pastor that saw one. I mean, if there's one person on earth you're going to believe when he tells you, I saw a Black Panther, it's a pastor.
Well,
pastor ain't going to make something like that up.
I know of a pastor that actually had a Bigfoot encounter, and he is the pastor of a pretty good sized church. And pastors, they're not going to lie to you.
Yeah, exactly. They don't make up stories.
They're in the work of God. They're not going to lie to you. If you could believe anyone that come to you and said that they seen what they saw, and it was this 7, 8 foot, 9 foot tall, hairy man that they seen in the woods. Who else are you going to believe? I mean,
exactly. And that takes me back to the point I've made in the past. I don't know if I've ever done it on video or not, but when it comes to cryptids and paranormal, especially cryptids and UFOs, not so much. I think the survey they did, like 75, 80% of America believe in ghosts and spirits anyway. And then UFOs come in right behind them. And then, I hate to say it, cryptids come in below psychics and mediums. Yeah, I guess that reaction pretty much tells you what I think about that. But,
yeah.
What I was going to say is when it comes especially to cryptids, we got witnesses, like I said, pastors, military, ex-current military, law enforcement, EMTs, firefighters, judges, lawyers, teachers. These are people as a society, we trust them to educate us, protect us, serve us, run the country, for God's sake, state and country. But if they say they saw Bigfoot, all of a sudden they're crazy. Now, what kind of double-edged sword, double standard crap is that? You know? I mean, all of a sudden, you're the most respectable member of your community, but if you saw Bigfoot, you're a crackpot. I can understand if you call me a crackpot, I'm nobody. You want to call those people crackpots?
But that's one of the reasons why the public doesn't come forward with a lot of sightings. That's the reason why we don't get more sightings in our areas, because
it's
person
like
that's seeing something,
to get somebody to talk here.
Well, they're scared of being labeled crazy, and that's one of the reasons why they won't tell you about their sighting. They're afraid to
and
be
when you
labeled
finally do
crazy.
get them to talk, the first words out of their mouth is, keep my name out of it.
Yeah.
I've had several like that. Don't tell anybody I told you this.
Well, I don't care not one bit to keep a person's name out of a report at all.
9 out of 10 times
bother me.
when I repeat something, it's just be witness, he or she. You'll never hear me hardly ever mention anybody by name, unless they're like, yeah, tell them I saw it.
If you go onto Thomas Markham's website, thecryptocrew.com, he has reports that he puts on there. He don't never tell the name of the witness unless he specifically asked them if it's okay. If they say no, he doesn't put the name on the report. And you can go on to hit, to the website now and find reports from years ago.
I know it. It's funny. Just here a couple of days ago, when I put the pictures of possible friends I found with Mom heard the whistle Sunday morning out in the yard. I think you saw that. I think you was there when I went out live following what could have been prints around the fence line there. I had one guy said, I looked on the BFR and there's no reports from your county. I was like, not all reports make it to the BFR, now do they? Because there's no reports from this county, but I've got getting up into the double digits now, and I'm just one guy who ain't even an official.
There's a lot of groups that don't acknowledge the BFRO too. Me being one of them in my groups and stuff, because of the fact that I have known of group members of the BFRO blowing off eyewitness reports from people.
I've heard similar.
When I was doing the podcast, I was into the podcast big time a couple years ago. I was every week for a year. I had a different guest on, and my mind just went blank. I'm sorry, I did that a lot.
It happens, trust me. Wait till you're my age.
But I was having
blank, it stays blank.
I was having all these folks come on, and I've had some crazy stories about sightings and stuff come from folks, but I always listen to what they have to say. Mm-hmm. I leave it up to the audience to decipher whether they think it's real or not. I get a lot of folks that say, who was that you were talking to? Can you tell me more about them? I want to hear, so-and-so about their sighting and stuff like that. But, that's one thing about me. No matter how far-fetched their sighting sounds, I let them speak because they were there. They witnessed that. I was not there with them. Exactly. So I can't say, hey, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you didn't see that. But there are a lot of people out there in the podcast world that have these podcasts and stuff that will call out people. I had Miss Linda Godfrey, who's one of the best people. She knows anything you want to know about dog. Yeah, anything you want to know about Dogman. When she was on my show before we went live, she was telling me that the show before mine, she talked about how rude the host was, how bad he berated her and made fun of her live on his show. She was so upset, and I was upset because of the fact that someone would actually put her through that.
Me after meeting Miss Godfrey, I don't know who the other host is, but I'd like to just you telling me that.
It's
because, like you said, you never meet a nicer woman.
Oh,
well, we met her mom was with me, and mom's only like 4'8". Of course, Miss Godfrey, she's probably only maybe a couple inches taller. She's right around 5 foot. That's the first thing I looked at mom, looked at her, I was like, see, mom, if she can get out there, no bigger than she is, you could come with me. And mom's like, no. I was like, well, look at her. She ain't no bigger than you. And of course, Miss Godfrey sitting there just cackling, laughing at me, trying to talk mom into going out in the woods to look for Bigfoot. She's like, I don't think you're going to win this one. Like you said, that's this woman you ever meet.
Oh yeah, but she was talking to me after the show, and she was just saying, you don't know how much I appreciate you, but you were so nice and stuff like this. And I'm glad that I actually got to talk to her and stuff and interview her that time. Since then, it's been a couple years back. I haven't got to talk to her then because she's been so busy. She's had a lot of things going on this year, of course, with the COVID and all that thing. She's had books and stuff she's been working on. But for someone to talk about another person like that on a show, or someone that you claim that you are a host of a show and you berate people listen to that. That makes the public not want to come forth with their their sightings and stuff with anything.
And that's another one of the things.
It gives researchers a bad name that want to hear about this stuff.
This might be a weird comparison for me to make. That's another that ain't just crypto Bigfoot world. I'll compare it to church. I've told people, I know some people that's ran more people out of a church than they ever brought in it. And that kind of behavior you're talking about right there, berating people and all that, that's what does it. Same concept. If somebody comes forward with their story and the first person they run into pulls that stunt, there ain't going to be a second interview. They're never going to talk about it again. Same concept. Somebody comes to church, the first day through the doors, all they hear is, "You're going to hell." They ain't coming back. Yeah, you could tell them about going to hell after you kind of ease them into it. But if you're brimstone and fire and brimstone, screaming and hollering as soon as they walk through the door, they're going to get up and leave, and they're never going to come back. You didn't bring them to God; you ran him away from him. And that's one of my pet peeves for people to do stuff like that. Don't persecute people. And like you said, same thing with people. If the first interview goes like that, there ain't going to be a second.
Oh yeah.
They'll never talk about it again.
And there's been other guests that I've had on that they tell me the same thing. Oh man, you were so nice, man. They would just tell me the show that they were on, previous show they were on the week before or month before last, how bad they were talked to. And I mean, it's just, you can't expect if we're going to do a podcast or a video cast, you got to talk to people the way you want to be talked to, and to treat them the way you want to be treated.
Golden rule.
Yeah. You know, do unto others if you have them to do unto you, you know.
Exactly.
And I try to treat everyone. Like I said, it doesn't matter how crazy, and I've heard some crazy stories. I've heard some for an instance, it was kind of hard to take in, but at the time my co-host was laughing hysterically. I know that she was laughing because her microphone went mute. And I know that's how she was. When she would laugh, she wouldn't laugh to them on camera or in their face. But she's not a cryptid researcher. She was more paranormal type of thing. And she hadn't had much experience at the time with interviewing folks about cryptids and stuff like that. But at least she didn't do it to where the person would hear her. But this person, actually, the person we were interviewing, told us that, and I actually think now that I've heard some crazy stories. Some other things didn't add up to me, which may lead me to think that this person had some kind of mental health issue going on. But this person told me that they had seen Bigfoot walk through the wall, went to their refrigerator and got out a big jar of pickles and was using a big old wooden fork to get pickles out of the jar. And that Bigfoot just grabbed the pickle off the fork and walked back through the wall and went back outside and just left a jar of pickles sitting in front of the refrigerator. Like I said, I didn't for the first time call that person crazy or anything, because you always want to treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, I always leave it up to the listener. You know, it's listener discretion. You believe if you want to believe. You don't have to. Nobody's twisting your arm and telling you, you better listen, sit here and listen to this. You better believe every bit of it. That's not what we're about. We put the story in front of you. It's up to you to either believe it or not.
Well, the statement I've always made, if somebody tells me they saw a flying purple people eater, until they give me a reason not to believe or trust them, I will. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They say they saw a purple flying people eater, then they saw a flying purple people eater. Now, I can't tell you what a flying purple people eater is, or why you saw it, or how you saw it, but you saw a flying purple people eater. And another thing I always say, I'll give people my opinion. I'll tell them what I think. I won't give them their opinion, and I won't tell them what they think. That's the way to do it to me. I can't tell somebody else to believe, or like you said, to believe or not believe them. And like you, I've heard a couple that I never said it to them. It might not have been the best way I handled it, but with the dogman thing, this guy claimed that these things had followed him home right up until a major city. He was seeing them outside his windows and stuff, like in the alley behind his house, and his neighbor he claimed to see it. I was like, well, you know what? All I can tell you is that sounds more demonic or spiritual to me. I don't think a flesh and blood creature is going to track you 80 miles back into a city and hang out in the alley behind your house. And I was like, all I can tell you is I can't help you with that. I'll pray for you. You need spiritual guidance. You don't need, I can come up there with a shotgun tomorrow and I don't think it would do any good. You know, you can't shoot a ghost or a spirit. And he kind of, when he said, I don't think he liked that answer. But I was just being honest with him. I was like, I don't know what to tell you about it, you know?
Well, the truth, I'm the same way. I believe, this is my opinion on the dogman phenomenon. The research that I've done over the years on it, I believe, the key word, I believe that these creatures do have an ill intent, whether it's demonic, whether it's a manifestation of demons, or one thing that brought me to the concept of this is I have heard of hunters shooting these animals, these dogman creatures, with high-powered hunting rifles, and they see the fur fly up, but the animal does not even react to it at all. Like you shot a paper wad at someone. Just no emotional, no acknowledgement of this being shot.
Reports like that. Yeah.
Bigfoot reports, I have never heard. I've never gotten reports of anybody shooting at a Bigfoot. Other than the Justin Smea incident where he supposedly shot the juvenile Bigfoot and killed an adult Bigfoot, and he buried the juvenile to come back the next day to get it, and it was gone. Other than that, that's the only one that I can remember of anybody that actually claimed that they shot a Bigfoot. And it was
my last episode.
He was frowned upon big time over just. I mean, you got to watch what you say.
He was on a couple of the TV shows.
$1 Million Bigfoot Bounty. Him and Stacy Brown.
Yeah, he was the one that
teamed up.
He claimed he finished the juvenile off by putting his hands around its throat and squeezing until it finally perished, if I recall right. The shot didn't kill it. He ended up choking.
I don't remember the exact story, but I know
could be wrong.
The ones that I have covered and stuff on the podcast and the things that I have dug into and researched about him and his stories and stuff. He shot this juvenile. It slid down a small embankment, and then the adult came back and he shot at the adult and ran the adult off. But it was so big, the juvenile was, that he couldn't pack it by himself. So what he did, he kind of dug a little hole and half buried it up to come back to get it the next day. And when he came back, something had dug it up and it was gone. So, I mean, just him saying that he shot a juvenile, put a target on him by the whole community, because there's a lot of no-kill groups out there.
Mm-hmm. I'd say they by far outnumber the kill groups.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, you talk about the Bigfoot reports of being shot at and not being affected. Just my last episode with Wendell Burrow from Arkansas, I was reading a report one of my listeners sent to me from Maysville, Kentucky. This was back in 1980, I think it was. Long story short, man sitting in his living room watching TV, little boy comes in. Daddy, somebody's trying to get in the back door. Well, he thinks the kid's playing a prank on him. Sit down and watch TV. A few minutes later, something almost trips the front door off the hinges. He said he goes to the door. It's about the way he explained. He said, my front door is 6'8". It was taller than the door. It was a white one of the rare white Bigfoot. But he said it had hair like a horse's mane. Well, when they startled each other, because I guess he did the last thing you'd expect him to do, when it's trying to rip the door off, he walked up and opened it, expecting a human intruder. So he runs back, gets his jacket and his 22 pistol, chases it around the side of the porch, he claimed in the little report I read. Well, he fires the 22 pistol at it twice. He said from maybe 30 feet away. He said it never fled. He said it didn't react at all. No sound. Never. And he said it loped off in a slow motion gait. And that was one of the few I've read where apparently Bigfoot is bulletproof. I've read or heard on podcasts 2 or 3 others. Like the vast majority is the dog man who seems to be bulletproof, for lack of a better word. And I'm like you, I'm convinced that if dog man is real, it's evil, it's a spirit.
But being if he was using that low caliber of a bullet shooting at a creature that big, I mean, really, unless you hit me dead center and get something vital on 22, probably just piss me off. Yeah. A lot of 22s. A lot of people like to use hollow points. A bigger animal, of course, you know how they are. They just glance off of bone and everything. They tear a smaller animal up.
Oh, yeah.
But that would be like shooting a Bigfoot with a
Spit wad.
yeah, pretty much, or throwing
That was
acorns
this
at
report,
one.
yeah.
And you got to think to not to have any acknowledgement. For as far as he he might not have hit it. If
Well, he
it's
claimed he didn't think he could miss, but
if
from 30 foot away, something that big, I would hope.
was it at night?
Yeah.
Well, it's dark. He probably missed. He might not even hit it. It's a possibility. That's the reason why it didn't acknowledge that it was being hit or anything.
I remember one
sure
other report that always stuck in my head.
I'm sure if you shot one with a 22, they're going to acknowledge that.
Well, that's what me and Wendell was talking about. You thought it would have changed directions or made some kind of vocalization or something to acknowledge the fact, hey, ho, you're shooting at me here.
But Dogman, I've heard of reports where they have been unloaded. I'm talking like 30-06.
Mm-hmm. I've probably heard the same report.
You can see the hunter would claim that the fur would fly up, him knowing that he hit it. He seen the bullet enter the animal, but he didn't see it exit, and it just ignored him totally, like he was not there. That it says more to me, and with the common sense that I take to approach with any type of research I do, that if an animal that is flesh and blood doesn't acknowledge that it's been hurt or been hit with something, that's not normal. It's not natural.
No. I'm right there with you. That's supernatural.
That's one of the reasons why I believe these creatures are a manifestation of evil.
Yeah.
They're not really what we're perceiving.
Like you said, I don't think I've ever heard a happy Dogman story.
Me neither.
And one other thing about Dogman before we go down the cryptid list here, we talk about Linda Godfrey. I've got this kind of theory or ideal of monkey see, monkey do. I'd really never heard of Dogman before Linda Godfrey come on Coast to Coast AM years ago and talked about it for the first time. And I'll pull a couple other examples. David Beck and the Black Eyed Kids. Never heard of them before he come on Coast to Coast. Now all of a sudden people see them left and right everywhere. And another example, a real famous podcast, had a guy call in, essentially, long story short, claiming to see a fairy. Well, by the end of the week, I bet there was 20 comments on his episode. Oh, I've seen a fairy too. Nobody ever breathed a word about seeing fairies before. So I wonder if there ain't a certain element. Oh, you saw a fairy? I saw a fairy too. You saw Dogman? I saw Dogman too. Almost like fishing tails. You caught a 4-pound bass? I caught a 6-pound bass. But I wonder if that don't figure into it somewhere.
Well, that and in the paranormal field, there are spirits that are called elementals. They are what are perceived by, in many cultures, like, for example, in Ireland, the leprechaun, fairies. Mm-hmm. They are a type of elemental. I know of a story that was told to me by someone about this lady was going through a divorce, and she moved onto this small little piece of property. And on this little piece of property by this stream, there was an outbuilding. And she kept seeing this 4-foot tall, what she said looked like a gnome, a little person with a beard and stuff. But she said when she seen this thing, she got the vibe that this thing put off was pure evil. And that coincides with the Cherokee they have a spirit that they call the little people. There's a lot of cultures that talk
a wongi or something like that.
Pugwudgie is one of the Pugwudgies are one of the elemental spirits. Yeah, and I mean, it's every culture out there has stories of little people, especially if it comes from ancient humans. Why would they want to lie about something like that?
Yeah.
They have no reason. Now, people now these days, you've got social media and stuff to make themselves look good, you know, to get on TV or something like that to talk about it. But I believe a lot of these folklore and things like this, they start out as a truth. Now, you can add to stories, you know, just like a person in your neighborhood. Farmer Fred down the road, his cow died the other day. And then before, you know, 2 weeks later, you hear that the cow died because the aliens come and was doing experimentation on him and took him up in a spaceship and set him back down. You know, that's how stories will change. Over time, they get
the telephone game back in high school.
Yeah, but there's always a basis of truth.
Yeah.
In all the folklore legends that are across the world.
Like I said, I just noticed that a trend developing there. There were certain cryptids and other phenomena. You never heard about them until they were on a radio show or a podcast or a TV show. And then all of a sudden, everybody's seeing them. But and I'm not saying people aren't seeing dogmen or leprechauns or fairies. Or if that's what they say they saw, then they saw it. I just question when all of a sudden 30 more people crawl out of the woodwork claiming they've seen the same thing. Never said a word about it until now. You know, it's like almost jumping on the fairy bandwagon or whatever.
Well, a lot of them too goes back to just like the community. There's a lot of folks out there that get with good groups that finally figure out, hey, somebody else seen a Bigfoot. I've seen the same thing that this person just claimed that they seen, same color and everything. That could be that too. The reason why, you know, fairy stuff, you know, people get on these websites, you know, coast to coast, which I'm like with you, even when Art was still doing the show, when he was still alive. I was listening to the shows back then. And the more that he had people on there that experienced something, you could go onto your websites and stuff that talked to, you know, these little forums that talked about the show. People would get on there and talk about their eyewitness reports, their seeing UFOs and, you know, little people, leprechauns, just, you know, ghosts, everything. And it just got bigger but a lot of people, when they think that they're crazy, when they've been called crazy by other people, whether it's your family or your coworker that you work with, they're reluctant. But once they realize there's groups out there for these type of things, they just open up because they've held it in for so long that it just feels good to them. It's a relief, a release to just let it out. Hey, I seen this creature. I seen this or I seen that. That could be a lot of it too.
I agree with that. 9 out of 10 witnesses, they're dying to tell somebody. They just want somebody to listen. They're dying for somebody to listen to them and not laugh. Which I don't laugh at people. Like I said, I just noticed. Well, another good example would be the internet thing, creepypasta, Slender Man. To best of my knowledge, Slender Man is not real. He is entirely an internet creation. But you got people out there now that swear up and down it's real. And like I said, best of my knowledge, that's a creepypasta or Reddit creation. I think somebody even admitted.
Yeah, it's supposedly a creepypasta story that started off with the kids, and it blew up.
Yeah. Now it makes me wonder if people are seeing something that looks like Slender Man, maybe.
But there's even a murder case of two teenage girls that killed a girl and was sacrificing her to the Slender Man.
Yeah.
Like I said, mental illness goes. There's all these groups are crazy. If you hear of someone, you know for a fact that it brings you up, it pops up into your head. I think this person's crazy. I think this person has a mental disorder. There are folks out there though that will feed things like that to people, and knowing that somebody, it's obvious that they've got something going on. No matter how crazy they are, there's groups out there that will feed into that, especially with Bigfoot groups, the classic woo. That woo meaning there are people out there, researchers that believe or claim that they have experienced Bigfoot activity, and Bigfoot has telepathically communicated with them, talked to them, if you will. A lot of them say that they've witnessed orbs and stuff right with Bigfoot. That is, I can't speak on that, and I won't, because of the fact that I didn't witness it. I wasn't there with that person, so I can't say, hey, you're crazy, and I won't.
No.
Now, if I'd been there and I'd witness it, I would buck up and say something. You can bet your patootie on that. I would say something for sure. But I can't do that. That's just the way I am, But
I'm not calling anybody crazy. Like I said, it just seems like it's paranormal bandwagons topic. Once it's on a certain show or something, people just jump on it. I just noticed that.
Yeah. There's people out there that have mental disorders, and these groups will prey on them. And it's sad. I have witnessed it myself. Just like the instance I give you about the guy that claimed the Bigfoot was eating pickles out of a pickle jar in his living room. He just Bigfoot walked right through the wall from the outside to the inside. There was actually a Bigfooter from up in, and I say it like that, Michael Patterson from up around in Canada, Ontario or someplace like that, who actually supposedly was talking to Bigfoot, and Bigfoot was talking back to him. And he got these recordings of this supposed Bigfoot calling him by his name and stuff, and calling out flower and stuff like that. It went on for a while till he made the guy that was in the charade with him, made him mad, the guy that was actually doing the voice of the Bigfoot. And the guy was like, supposedly this Michael Patterson researcher, whatever you want to call him, he said this guy's lying. But the guy actually done the voice, and you could line them up. I did before through some audio software that I had on my computer at the time, and they sounded just alike. So it made it look very, very bad on Mr. Patterson, claiming he had all this evidence and had witnessed all this stuff. And during these videos he was putting up on YouTube, the cameras never pointed at him. You never seen a creature. You never done anything. It was always behind the camera. And it set off red flags to a lot of people in the community. And then this guy started bringing out more evidence that he was the one that was behind it, helping him, that it was hoaxed. But you still have people to this day that claim that it's truth. Yeah, that they'll believe it. And it's sad, but there are people out there that will prey on people like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that I can't stand. You know, me myself, I'm bipolar. I take medicine, you know, and I thank God with him, prayer and medication and stuff keeps me on the straight and narrow. But you have a lot of folks out there that don't take their medication and stuff like that. They get into these minds, especially schizophrenia. People like that will about believe anything you tell them. And it's because they don't know no better. It's because their mind, you know, the chemical imbalance in their head isn't right. And people prey on things like that. That's my point right there. And it's sad. It really, really, really is sad.
I understand that there's con men out there in any field. That's another thing. It ain't just Bigfoots. Politics, religion, business. Like you said, they'll prey on anybody that they can get their hooks into.
But we have the community as a whole. We have people. We have to tell if you know something like that going on, when a group, whether it's paranormal or it's cryptid related, if you see that another group is taking advantage of someone and you actually have the proof to go along with it, speak up for people. I said that golden rule, man. Do unto others as you have them do to you. Stick up for people. Because you never know, you might need someone to stick up for you with something one of these days.
Oh, yeah. What goes around comes around. You can be in their shoes.
Exactly.
Let's see. What we covered Dog Man. We mentioned 411 earlier. What's your thought on that?
It could be, you know, it could have something to do with disappearances being a type of cryptid, whether it's Dogman or Bigfoot. I lean more towards, if it's going to be a cryptid, it would be a Dogman. There are aggressive Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest is where I hear they're very, very, very aggressive. In our part of the area in the eastern United States, I don't hear many stories of aggressive behavior from Bigfoot. A lot of it's out towards the west.
I've heard mostly the Southwest.
Yeah, I don't
Southwest,
know.
Texas, down in there. Apparently, the ones in Texas are really kind of
Texas, California, Idaho, places like that where I don't know if it has to do with the difference in terrain or whatever, but I don't know if maybe they're like us and they experience bad days. You know, you really never know. But like I say,
I love Texas, but if I'm a Bigfoot and I'm in Texas, everybody and their grandmother's packing a gun.
Oh yeah.
Texas. So who knows, if you're a Bigfoot in Texas, how many times have you been shot at? Maybe they're just sick of being shot at by everybody and their grandmother down there. So the Bigfoot walks around in a permanently bad mood because everybody's constantly shooting at him in Texas. But I joke about that, of course.
I mean,
I love Texas. So.
I wouldn't actually. Okay, my guitar and stuff down in here. Anyways, sorry about that.
Sorry.
It still goes back to that. If you corner a mother animal, you know, you got to look at that too. It could be they're showing aggression because of that. A lot of folks don't, especially if they've never seen something like that before in their life. and they witness something like that being aggressive towards them, what are you going to think? This thing's going to eat me. I'm getting out of here. You don't think afterwards, hey, maybe there was a baby
Just
around.
as scared of me as I was of it.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That goes with that mentality.
And that goes back to the point you was talking about the people talking about telepathic Bigfoot. I don't know how many reports I've read or heard or watched. It looked just as surprised to see me as I was to see it. Well, if they're telepathic, how did you sneak up on them? How do you sneak up on something that can read your mind? That's where one of my lines in the saying, if they were telepathic, we'd never see it.
That's what I call them red flags. If you listen to a person's eyewitness account, you can usually red flags make you think maybe this person is not telling the truth. Because that, like you said, that's a good thing right there to throw up. If they're telepathic, they would have known.
Yeah. Like I said, we'd never see them.
Exactly. They would smell you coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because smell has to be way better than ours.
Oh yeah.
Their
senses are probably at least 10 times ours.
Oh yeah, they're high. You know, they have such heightened senses, way more than hearing, sight, and smell. They'd have to be.
Hearing and smell. The only thing I question about their sight, I wonder if their daytime sight's not that good.
I believe, to me, them being a lot of sightings happen during the nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's not as many during the daytime. And I believe it could be one of the reasons why is because their eyesight might be bad. And when they're out in the light, they have trouble seeing. And you're going to catch one for sure, especially on the roadway. And you're going to get a good sight of it. They're supposedly nocturnal animals, or creatures, whatever you want to call them. And that says to me, you know, they probably see better at night.
Mm-hmm. Well, what me and Wendell was talking about, I said, if you think about it, when I first wake up in the morning, if there's ever a time to sneak up on me, it's when I first wake up and I ain't had my Mountain Dew. My eyes are half caked shut. I'm stumbling around. Well, if they're nocturnal, evening, right around dusk, is when they're waking up. And dawn, right as they're going to bed, would be. That's why I go out during the daytime looking. I figure my best chance to catch one with its pants down would be during the daytime. When I've got the advantage. Because like I told them, I get the hell out of the woods when it starts getting dark. That's their world out there in the dark. I don't. And of course, I'm by myself, so common sense, don't go running around in the woods at night by yourself. There's a lot. Bigfoot don't have to kill you. There's 100 other ways you can die out here. But I think, and most of our activity is right around dusk, because it's just getting dark, sunset, or early in the morning, right after sunrise, and that's when they be bedding down. And like a couple other researchers, I believe when they bed down during the day, they leave a sentry or watcher or whatever you want to call them. If they're small little pod, somebody's on watch, for a better word. And like you said, if their sight ain't that good during the day, just like my encounter there at dusk, you know, maybe the reason I got within 50 or 60 feet of him is he didn't see me because his eyes hadn't adjusted. Maybe he smelled me or something, and that's when he snorted and took off, or huffed, or whatever he did. But as far as the 411 thing, that's one I kind of disagree on. I don't think it's necessarily a cryptid like we think of, like Bigfoot or Dogman. Because to my thinking, if it's a flesh and blood creature, it's cryptid. Some of these cases, David Blotty's covered stuff, you know. Hiker A, Hiker B, Hiker C. Say Hiker C's like, y'all go ahead, I'll catch up with you in a minute. But they only go 50 or 60 yards up the trail. And it ain't but a minute or two, they turn around, Hiker C is gone. Nobody heard nothing, nobody saw nothing, and they never find Hiker C. Well, for a flesh and blood animal like a Sasquatch or a dog man, if they're flesh and blood, you're talking something 7 foot plus, probably at least 400 pound plus. You want to tell me that thing's going to run by, took camper C under or hiker C under his arm, run back off, and neither him or the camper's ever going to make a sound? Nobody sees anything. Nobody. That's just, I know they're stealthy. I don't think they're that. I don't think they're special forces Bigfoot out there running up and doing the movie, snap the neck. And like I told people, if you know anything about anatomy in real life, snapping somebody's neck is not a quiet process. If nothing else, there's going to be a little big loud pop when the neck snaps. It ain't the movie stuff, you know, where it's just and the guy falls over. That's one of those popular misconceptions or whatever you call it. What just irks me when I see it in the movie. I was like, that ain't how you snap. I was a high school wrestler. The only reason I know more than I should about snapping people's necks, I realize how to twist joints and stuff and what it sounds like, how long it takes to do it, to get a lock and get a hold, choke somebody out or whatever. And it ain't a 3-second process where you just choke them out or break their neck and then drag them back to the woods. Like Rambo and Special Forces do in the movie. I mean, if we had a Navy SEAL here, he'd tell you the same thing. It ain't that easy. So, I don't know what is doing the 4111, the 411. I really don't believe it's Bigfoot or any kind of solid flesh and blood. My best guess is, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but either dimensional or time slips, where somebody walks through a distortion in the space-time continuum, for lack of a better word, and travel either into the past or the future, and then the thing shuts behind them, they can't get back. So, I mean, like, one step to the next, you know, you're walking. And apparently it only happens in the woods, but it could happen walking down the sidewalk. You walk through this thing, it may not even be visible. It shuts behind you, and you're stuck in 1842 or whatever. Or some alternate timeline or something. And I realize that's probably the most out there thing I've said all night, but that makes more sense than a physical entity running up and grabbing somebody without making a sound.
I'm like you. That's right. I don't believe it's a foot or any type of cryptid that's actually doing it, because you would those are so big they would make some type of commotion getting away. You would
crashing through the bushes or nothing.
You would at least hear footfall.
Yeah.
I've heard 300 pound bear, 300 pound black bear run in front of me, and it sound like 1,000-pound one. You know, just a pile smacking the ground, you can feel the vibration going through the ground, because they're a solid muscle animal.
Yeah.
Bigfoot is solid muscle too, and a lot more bigger than the black bear that
That's my biggest problem with that. Something that big doesn't move that quiet.
Yeah,
and there's other aspects of those cases. Like I was talking about them finding the shoes all the time. They either find the shoes and don't find the body, or they find the body without the shoes.
Or a piece of clothing.
Yeah. Clothes turned inside out. I don't think Bigfoot's doing that. And the really weird ones, you have the children's cases where they find a kid that somehow travels over one or more mountain ranges in less time than it would take an experienced hiker to do it. There's no way that kid did that. And I don't think Bigfoot picked him up, packed him over 3 mountain ranges, and set him back down. I hate to say it, but I don't really believe the furry forest friend where you sit down and have coffee and donuts with Bigfoot, and he goes back to the woods and you go to work or whatever. So, I mean, I don't believe they're inherently hostile, but I don't think you're going to sit down and eat s'mores around the campfire with them either. That covers 411. We talked about Black Panthers. Now, I'll tell you one I really get into is the Thunderbirds. I really like Thunderbird reports. They're probably my second favorite, right behind Bigfoot. For one reason, I don't see anything evil about them. They're a flesh and blood creature, just like Bigfoot, as far as I'm concerned. And it's just the idea, either a living dinosaur or just a gigantic condor or whatever they are, flying around in remote parts of the world. If they're not real, I wish they were. And I've seen a couple extremely large birds around here. One time, I was driving down the road and I was looking out the truck window to my right as I come to a stop sign before I pulled out on the main road. And out over the horizon, over the ridge line, the sun, it was to the west because the sun was that direction. I saw two what looked like, I first thought they were buzzards. Then I realized, I said, God, that's 5 or 6 miles back through there to that ridge line. And I wasn't just seeing little black dots flying in front of the sun like a buzzard would be at that distance. I could actually make out a body and tail and wings from 5 or 6 miles away in front of the sun. And there was 2 of them. And whatever they weren't buzzards. And we have an occasional bald eagle here in Kentucky. But even a bald eagle, at that distance, I would think I wouldn't be seeing much more than a little black speck flying around.
We have bald eagles.
You're cutting out on me.
We have them. We have the eagles big time here in the county where I live at. There's a great population of them.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, but these just seem too big to me for even a bald eagle. To be looking at them from that distance and to be able to make out the wings and the tail and the body, and not quite the head, but still. And of course, with them in front of the sun, all I really see is a silhouette, kind of a black shape. But I'm still seeing it pretty clear from probably across this valley and the ridge line in this 5 or 6 miles. I mean, how big would that bird have to be when you got up on it? So, and I got a couple other reports. One down around Kincaid Lake, and this guy, he would make up a lot of things, but the one thing he wouldn't make up is he admitted it scared him. And he was kind of, I ain't afraid of nothing. He drove an old Trans Am. This was back in the early 90s, late 80s, because he was older. He's a little bit older than me. He said he was crossing one of the old metal railroad-style bridges that crossed the river down there near Falmouth, and the moon was out. He said all of a sudden something passed over the car and blocked the moon out. He thought it was a cloud. He had his T-tops out. He said, I looked up and I see this bird-like thing with its wings stretched out. He said, I swear it was as long as my car and as wide as that bridge. He said, it banked, and he said it didn't flap its wings. It soared off down the river and around a bend out of sight. And he saw it backset against the moon. He said, this thing was as long as my car and as wide as, of course, it's probably like a lane and a half bridge, one of them old metal style bridges. He said, I don't know what it was. He said, it scared the living bejesus out of me. And the second he said that, I was like, he's telling me the truth. Because he would never admit to something that wasn't real scaring him.
Yeah.
And for him to admit he was scared, like I said, he's telling me the truth. I mean, like I said, what birds as long as an late 80s model, early 90s model Trans Am, as wide as a lane and a half bridge, wingspan. And I realized Cliff Bartman once said there at Crypticon, the 2 things that the average person is terrible at is judging distance and size when it comes to a subject. But I don't think he would be that far off, He must have been close to being that big. And I just, like I said, I can't imagine what. You got any thoughts on Thunderbirds?
Not really. I haven't had any experience or any reports of Thunderbirds here in my area.
I could probably count the ones I've read or heard of from Kentucky on one hand. They're not common. Now, Illinois gets a lot. Of course, they had that flap up around Chicago here last year or so about the Mothman or something like Mothman, right around, which I kind of, guys, you just said it's right around O'Hare International Airport. You saw something in the sky right next to the airport. And I'm not making fun of these people, but stop and think about what you're saying for a second. I saw something in the sky right next to the airport.
Once again,
kind of like be kind of like me saying, I saw a fish in the water. I guess that leads to the next one: fish in the water, Loch Ness monster, lake monsters, river monsters.
Um, Loch Ness. I believe that Loch Ness is actually contains something that's natural, meaning it's some type of animal that we know of. As being a plesiosaur, some aquatic type cryptid dinosaur, I don't think it is anything like that. I believe it's something, an eel, because supposedly Loch Ness is full of eels, huge eels. Even though there's videos on the internet of boats going out onto the loch, and these things going by the boats causes these huge waves, and this big dark thing. I mean, you could actually see the skin, whatever it was. It was huge, but you still couldn't make out what the creature was because the loch is so dark. But I believe, wise is it being a dinosaur, a living dinosaur, or any other type of cryptid that he wants to talk about, I don't think it is. I believe it's an animal that we scientifically know that's being classified.
I've always, Nessie's another one of them, Nessie in particular. You want it to be real. This idea of this big, whatever it is, swimming around in a lake over there in Scotland. I mean, it's a legend. Everybody wants a legend. I love for Paul Bunyan to be real. He ain't, but I love for him to be. Him and his big blue ox, too. Same thing with Loch Ness Monster. I love for it to be real. I have problems with, like, when they put submersibles in the loch and never found it. And they talk about how the one part of the loch connects to the ocean or the sea. Well, wouldn't right there where it goes out to sea be the perfect choke point to put a few cameras? Because whatever it is, sooner or later, it's going to come through that spot.
Yeah.
If it's coming with the theory that it's something that's some kind of sea creature that occasionally comes into the block, why don't they put 24/7 cameras on that channel that goes out to sea? And sooner or later, whatever it is going to be on that camera.
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe there's like you said, the water's real dark for one thing. Maybe there's other reasons they don't do that people smarter than me have figured out.
Well, one of the
Now, as far as dinosaurs in general, my pastor's got a real interesting theory, being a Christian versus evolution and dinosaurs. And this blew my mind because I said something about dinosaur bones one day. And he looked at me and said, well, dinosaur bones come from dinosaurs. I was like, all right, well, how do you explain dinosaurs in the Bible? He said, you remember when Lucifer was cast out of heaven and fell to earth? I was like, yeah. He's like, it wasn't a meteorite that killed the dinosaurs. It was the fall of Lucifer when he hit the earth. Because in the Bible, it says something about woe unto the creatures of the earth and everything below it or something like that. All the creatures of the earth when Lucifer was thrown out. He believes the impact of Lucifer being cast out of heaven down to earth is what killed the dinosaurs. Like I said, when he told me that, mind blown. Because that's one I'd never thought of it in 100 years. So that's why I don't have as much trouble with Nessie being a dinosaur that somehow survived. Because now I've even got a little book around here somewhere about dinosaurs in the Bible. And the guy explains how carbon dating isn't anywhere near as accurate as mainstream science wants you to think it is. So a lot of these dinosaur bones that are supposedly 85 million years old or whatever, he's like, they could be 850 years old for all they know. So that's two things that show me dinosaurs could fit into a creationist timeline. And like I said, both times, I'm sure when the pastor laid that on me, the look on my face had to be priceless. So I'm sure I was just like, a little light bulb probably come on over my head. On cartoon style.
That you probably never thought of. in Genesis chapter
You're cutting out on me again.
chapter 6 in the Bible, it talks about giants.
Mm-hmm. They were giants in the days of Noah and after.
Yep. And
6:6, I think it is.
The reason why the flood came was because of the sins of man, but not just the sin of man. When the fallen angels come down to Mount Hermon, when God sent them down to help humans, they sinned against man and animal.
Animal.
They mingled DNA. This is where you get a lot of these satyrs. Supposed to be half human, half goat. The Minotaur from Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Half and half. Who's not to say that these fallen angels didn't create dinosaurs? And when the flood came, it wiped the dinosaurs out. And that's the reason why
except for the ones that swam.
Yeah. And that's the reason why all you're finding now is all these land animals, these dinosaurs, T-Rex, raptors, brontosaurus, all those herbivore and carnivore. You're finding these bones. It's because at one point in time they did exist, but through God's way of cleansing the earth of sin, the dinosaurs go in with that because it ties all into the Genesis. Science and the mingling of DNA and experimentation and stuff. That's the only way he can get rid of those abominations. In his eyes, they were abominations. So
the key words in that verse you're talking about, I think I'm pretty sure it's Genesis 6:6. There were giants in the days of Noah and after. I always point out to me, David and Goliath come after the flood. Goliath had some kind of giant or Nephilim blood, and he had 2 or 3 brothers too. They were, I think, bigger than him.
His grandfathers and great grandfather, Gog and Magog, or giants. There's even a story in the Bible. I think it's in the New Testament of one of the prophets went to an island, and he said on the island that it was an island of giant people. They were way taller than him. And at that time, science has acknowledged that people in those days were a whole lot shorter. Of that time period when this story was in the Bible, just taking context from human anatomy, they came up with that, people in that area would have been shorter and smaller because of, habitat, basically. Yep. How you adapt.
Well, I forget what it's called, but the further south you go, the shorter, darker skin and skinnier people get. Further north you go, the taller, beefier, and lighter skin and hair they get. I know and it applies to animals. Further north you go, the bigger they get. I know what you're talking. I can't think of what it's called. But it's some kind of principle.
That goes in with that. But not just it doesn't quite mean that people on that island were giants, but it also can mean that the person, the prophet, was much shorter. But there are more instances of a creature, and I mean creatures, of prophets in the New Testament as seen these so-called creatures. There was supposed to be a race of people that had like a face of a lion.
Those were part of the Canaanites, I believe.
The whole group of Canaanites was supposed to be a giant race. The Nephilim. And if you look into, I think, the meaning of the name Canaan from the land, the land of Canaan in the Bible, it's supposed to mean something like land of giants or something like that. And a lot of them were named after inhabitants, the people that lived.
Oh, I'm all into the biblical connection between cryptozoology and the Bible, especially Bigfoot. Me and Wendell Burroughs was talking from Arkansas, and he brought up Esau, who was, when he was born, was supposed to be covered in real thick wool, almost wool-like hair. And according to him, Esau's 2 wives came from Canaanite, so they had giant blood in them. We get a hairy human and a half giant female. They produce offspring. What are you describing?
Well, it said God actually punished him. He punished Esau. And it says when God punished him, he ran out into the fields and he was wild. He wouldn't cut his fingernails. They tried getting a hold of him, cleaning him up. His hair, supposedly he was like really hairy all over. Yeah. His hair just got longer and he just looked like a wild man.
Mm-hmm. And another thing in the Bible, and I can't remember the life of me what book, verse, or chapter. I wish I had that kind of memory, but I can't. The troglodytes. They were like a cave-dwelling tribe of bestial humans. And at one point, God commands the Israelites to wipe them out. And I said, I think a lot of people never stop to consider this. When God created the earth in 7 days, he created the whole earth, not just the Middle East. North America wasn't an add-on that he finished on day 42 or whatever. So whatever was going on over there was going on here too. We just don't get the narrative because the people that wrote the Bible were in the Middle East. They weren't in North America. And Hal Lane made an interesting point. He thinks, and he talked about somewhere in Tennessee they found tablets in ancient Arabia or something like that in a cave. He thinks Joshua chased the giants to North America. Now he can explain it better than I could. Of course, we all know about the red-haired giants out west, Lubbock Cave. Anybody worth their salt in cryptozoology knows about Lubbock Cave and the red-headed giants.
Yep.
And I go back to Eric Leifson of the Vikings. You talk about how people were shorter back then. Well, the biggest and the baddest were the Vikings. The Nordics, I read an article. They weren't the giants that everybody thought they were, 7 or 8 foot tall, but they were about 6. 6 foot tall would have been a giant to the average person back then. Because the average man back then was lucky if he topped 5.5 foot tall. So if a Viking was 7 foot tall, but long story short, Eric Leifson comes to North America after hundreds of years of feuding with the Romans and the Catholics to convert to Christianity. He goes to North America, runs into something he describes as huge, beast-like warriors with a terrible smell and a fearsome visage and all. Basically, whatever these things were, they ran the Vikings back out of North America. Eric Leifson gets back to Iceland and Norway and all that, converts his people to Christianity after he visited North America. So who or what did Eric Leifson run into in North America that, like I said, the Vikings were the badasses of the day back then. They didn't back down. I mean, plunder and raiding is what they did.
Icelandics, man. Most of them were supposedly, Leif Erikson was like 7 foot tall or taller. He was 7 foot tall, from the stories and the research that I've done on him and other tribes from Iceland. And like you said, him seeing something like that's going to scare him. You're
for
talking
him to call something a giant.
Yeah, you're talking about warriors, man. These guys didn't fear nothing.
The Vikings didn't back down.
Yeah, I mean, and for it to run off of the U.S., that's crazy. That's something right there. You got
and the way he described them,
things.
He said they had reddish brown hair. Everybody in North America and Canada, Central America, with dark skin with dark hair. There wasn't nobody with red hair running around in North America at the time. So where did the skeletons come from? I mean, that's one thing that I'll go all the way down that rabbit hole. The biblical, historical connection, forbidden archaeology, and all that. All the supposed undiscovered and unproven archaeology. All the stuff they don't want you to know. Because they'd have to go back and rewrite every history book they've ever written.
Oh yeah.
Well, I didn't realize it, but we are a little over 3 hours. 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We didn't have any. I don't think we have one live viewer. Nobody bothered to ask any questions. Been a great conversation, though. I can't think of any other cryptids we ain't covered or anything. I guess last couple questions. That's what we just went through. I think both of us are pretty much on the same page. I'll be surprised. What do you think Bigfoot is?
Well, I'm like you. There in the community, a lot of folks don't read the Bible. But I use the Bible when it comes to cryptid research because the evidence is right there. It's been passed down from generation. It's common sense type of thing. But do I think Bigfoot is a type of primate? No. If Bigfoot isn't not the Nephilim, the Bible, then I actually would believe that Bigfoot would be a type of Native American. You know, and there's been saying that. I'll try to give a little theory to why I think that too. But humans don't evolve. Science says humans evolve. Humans adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Who's not to say that Bigfoot is just not a step-off human, a Native American, if you will. Sorry about that. A Native American, a tribe that has stepped away from modern man. Because if you take a person, a human today, you put them out in the wilderness, they're going to look way different than what you are. One, they're going to be dark. They'll be out in the sun because being out in the sun is a step of life because they have to get out, they have to hunt, they have to garden and things like that just to survive. They're going to be healthier because they don't have to take medication and stuff like we do because we eat food that has processed stuff in it. A wild person, human, would be a whole lot healthier, probably be bigger, have more body hair. They would be, their body would adapt to their environment. You see, you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And
bigger, faster, stronger.
Yes, exactly.
Sharper
Because
senses.
you don't have all these processed foods that you're taking in, and the medication. I believe it does a lot with stunning growth. The immune system, we all know that for a fact.
Oh, yeah.
I actually believe that Bigfoot could be a human, just a native species of human. You know, they're not Neanderthal. because of the fact that the way science describes Neanderthal, they would have the mental range of an infant. But we all know for a fact that Bigfoot is very intelligent. So if they're
smarter than us.
Exactly. And what is a step down from a human? A primate. So you know that they, mental wise, they can't be a primate. And supposedly, I mean, there's only one other way that you could go. They're not human, so they would have to be some type of Native American, world person, whatever you want to call them. To me, if they're not Nephilim from the Bible. But my main thought process on Sasquatch as a supposed cryptid, I believe they are Nephilim from the Bible. And I know there's a lot of groups and people will flat out say, no, there's not. They're not. But there's evidence in the Bible that corroborates that, with the thinking and the theory that I have. And there's, it's been in groups and stuff, it's even got taboo for you to bring up the biblical thing with Bigfoot.
Connection.
Yeah, but people don't think. Use common sense. You ever heard the overthinker? Well, there's a lot of people that do that. They overthink things. When there's a lot of things, the evidence is right.
I'm guilty of it sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I am too.
Certain things I'll sit there and drive myself crazy about.
But yeah, I actually believe that Bigfoot. My first theory would, just like a lot of there, and there's a lot of people who believe the same way. I believe they are a byproduct of the angel and human connection, the mingling of man and angel, the supposed Nephilim. I would even go as far as to say they are a genetic anomaly, but it still ties into the angels, the watcher angels, messing with the DNA. Will we ever know what they really are? Probably not. But
not this side of the Great Divide, anyway.
Like I was saying earlier in the show, unless we all come together, all these groups in the Bigfoot community come together and we share what we've got, then we'll start getting together and hunting these things and actually find them for study. But if we don't get together, we'll never know what they are. It'll be something that we'll never understand.
I'm pretty much right there with you with the Nephilim. The one wrinkle I put in it, and I gave you Goliath as an example, he was only half Nephilim. And he was 13 and a half cubics. So many cubits, I think it equals out to like 13 and a half feet. But what I think about is that was 2,000 plus years ago. Me and you are descendants of Adam and Moses and Abraham and everybody else in the Bible. Think about the lifespans of the men in the Bible. They lived to be 6, 8. Methuselah was almost 1,000 years older, right around 1,000. We do well if we make it to 100 today. We don't have the same genetics they did, obviously, because we can't do the things they did. We don't live as long. We're probably not anywhere near as smart or as strong.
Well, I can say that too.
And another thing I look to, David's mighty men of valor. If you ever listen to the descriptions of them in the Bible, I remember one in particular had a bow that nobody else could draw. He was that much bigger and stronger. So you move 2,000 years down the road from them to me and you. We're weaker, frailer. Now, on the other end of things, you got these Nephilim messing with humans and animals both. Now, Goliath might have been 13, 14 foot tall, but 2,000 years down the road, you got a 9 or 10 foot tall Sasquatch that's been driven out into the wilderness by humanity, the tribes of Israel, maybe almost to the point of extinction. They're descendants of the Nephilim, or the troglodytes, either one.
Well,
I don't think they're full-blooded Nephilim.
That into the old, well, not the old saying, but common sense. They didn't have medications that they had to take. They had a cleaner diet. I believe that's one of the reasons why they lived so long back then. Like Methuselah, I think it was 800 and something, 847 or 870.
I was thinking he's right up around 1,000, and Moses was in the 800s. I'd have to look.
Might be in since I've actually read the story, but the environment was totally different then too. There wasn't no pollution and things like that, and that goes back into that, the theory of adaptation. We adapt to the environment we're in. Evolution is, there was a little dot or a little cell, and we went from a little cell to the humans we are today. That's physically and scientifically impossible. Evolution is just a theory. A lot of people take it as a fact, but it's not. It's a theory.
It's a theory. And you want to really get an evolutionist mad? Remind him that Carl Sagan converted to Christianity before he died, thanks to C.W. Lewis.
Yeah.
You want to watch one's head explode? An evolutionist or an atheist? Remind him evolution's just a theory, and Carl Sagan converted to Christianity because C.W. Lewis talked him into it before he died. Converted. I've almost gotten into fist fights over that. When I tell them Carl Sagan become a Christian, I almost got in a fist fight with a couple of atheists over that. I was like, you can look it up if you want to. I'm telling you, it's historic fact. You can argue if you want to. You can call me crazy if you want to, but if you actually plug in, go online, look it up, you're going to find out I'm right. And I mean, I'm talking Yosemite Sam, steam coming out of their ears so bad. I think we're through it. At least one question, the one we talked about before we come on. Other than Bigfoot, the creepiest or craziest or strangest thing you've ever seen or experienced?
Cryptid-wise, I really don't have nothing other than the sighting that I had. Other than hearing some calls and some wood. Cryptid-wise, I have nothing really that crazy. But there's plenty paranormal-wise. I mean, I probably got at least another 45 minutes worth I could go into on the paranormal side. But we might leave that side for another time.
That's fine.
Maybe I can come on the show again later on and we can talk about the paranormal side of stuff. And I can share some of the knowledge that I have, some of the viewers and stuff like that.
I've got one paranormal story. I only have one. And I will say if it wasn't a ghost, I don't know what it was. So I'll just kind of give you that for a cliffhanger. Yeah, we can do it again sometime, or if you want to have me on you still do a podcast? Or?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually this coming week, I'm going to have a new guest up.
Okay. Like I said, if I can never return a favor, come on your show or whatever, do part 2 on your show, however you want to go about it. Just let me know.
All right, I appreciate it.
We'll work something out. Yep, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a great conversation, great interview. I know it seemed like at times we were just patting each other on the back, agreeing with 95% of what the other one said, but that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, you're going to agree with people. You're going to like I said, you're just going to find people that you'll gravitate to because you have the same beliefs when it comes to these groups and research and stuff like that. And that's like you, Daniel, those are two people right there that I know of that believe the same thing when it and go about the same way of evidence and stuff. I keep a tight knit when it comes to people in the community. There isn't too many people that actually share things with, and I only do that because it's a trust thing, really. But once you earn my trust when it comes to stuff like that, I don't care not one bit to share things, ask opinion on things. You know, if I cross a report, I don't care not one bit to share things with, you know, and with people.
I'm the same way as far as trust goes. Like I was telling you earlier with the flying purple, I'll trust flying purple people, everything. I'll trust you until you give me a reason not to. You know, as anybody. And once you've given me that reason not to, I may never believe another word that comes out of that person's mouth again, as long as they live. Because if they lied to me once, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like we've got, like you said, a lot in common apparently. And like I said, I think there's a few other researchers right there with us about how we look at things and go about it. Daniel Benoit, he's taught me more on the technology, and I wouldn't know what StreamYard was if it wasn't for him. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Can't thank you enough. Like I said, it's been great.
All right, man. Anytime.
All right. Have a great one. God bless. Take care.
God bless you too, bro.
All righty.